Good morning, everyone. Hello, good morning. Hi, everyone, welcome to Google. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're really excited about the day ahead. I think we'll have a few more joining us, but in the meantime, we're going to get started so we don't get too far behind. For those of you who don't know me, my name is David Liu. I am the industry head for the B2B sector here at Google UK. So today, we have a really action-packed schedule. But before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items I've been told I have to run through. This is the most fun part of it, and actually the most nervous part of this whole presentation. Fire exits. So the fire exits are the two doors back there. You'll see signs there. So if you ever hear any alarm, make your way slowly to the fire exits. Toilets will be outside the main exits. So when you're going to go outside, there's always going to be a Googler there who's going to meet you to help you get in and out of this part. You'll see a lot of doors, so you always have to have badges. So make sure you have your green badges present at all times. With that, I want to talk a little bit about today's agenda. So we have an action-packed agenda today, starting at 9:30, and we're only going to 2:30. So not a lot of time, but we have a lot of exciting things to cover through. So we have some great specialists here at Google who'll be walking through various topics. We're going to be sharing with you guys the latest European B2B research. And then we are really excited to have some amazing external guests who's going to talk about their own experiences. So you get to see some of the concepts we discuss, but in real life, including Sage, Akzo Nobel, and RS, and also a really exciting presentation from Vice. We will have a break in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we're going to have a lunch, which is catered by Hummus Brothers, so please stick around for that. The other thing I was told to mention is that our hashtag for the day is B2B Google. You might have seen logos that say Google B2B or B2B at Google. I know it's really confusing, but the hashtag is B2B Google. So please share your experiences, share your thoughts on social media. We'd love to hear from you and also get the word out, too, about the event. Let me see what else I'm forgetting. Oh, also, so the other thing is that throughout the day, we'll have some giveaways. So please stay focused at the event. We might ask a few questions, but we do have some exciting awards to give, or prizes to give away for people. And then there will be some time afterwards for mingling and networking, so we really encourage you guys to get to know your colleagues and other people in the industry. With that, I wanted to turn it over to our fearless leader, Kevin Mathers, to kick off the event, to give you guys a little bit of future gazing and seeing what's ahead and how technology has shaped our lives, as well as your jobs as marketers. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Morning all. Welcome to Google. My name's Kevin Mathers. I'm the country sales director here, but we'll start off with a video because some of you look a little bit sleepier than I might at this moment in the day. Run the first video, please.
When we were trying to name Google, we actually went through thousands of names.
The name of the company has now become its own verb in the dictionary.
Let's Google it.
You can Google it.
Work the Google on the internet machine.
6 simple letters on a plain white page.
Being able to do searches in any language about any country.
When you're putting in a question, they'd finish your question for you.
We have been working on organizing the world's information.
Our goal is to digitize all the books.
Today, Google announced Gmail. Email for everyone for free.
Google is mapping the entire world to make it more accessible to people everywhere.
Google is jumping into the mobile market.
Android was built as an open platform for everyone to use and build on.
This is Chrome. It's a faster, safer browser for the open web.
Google is unveiling what they call the knowledge graph.
We needed to understand the world the way you and I do, as objects and relationships between objects.
Today, Google's got another useful feature with Google Now.
We are providing you with answers before you've even asked for them.
One of my favorite cards is the one that shows traffic data for your commute to and from work.
Think about how far Google has evolved from the 10 blue links.
We asked ourselves, how can we assist you right when you need it?
Okay, Google, call the Walker Art Center.
It's not just desktops, phones, and laptops anymore.
Okay, Google. 유진이한테 5분 늦는다고 문자 보내줘.
It's watches with displays, car consoles with displays.
Okay, Google. Let's go to the aquarium.
How can we help you get things done in as few steps as possible?
Okay, Google.
Okay, Google. Okay, Google. Show me my photos of Lucas with the pumpkin.
But we have to remember, we have a long way to go.
This is just the tip of the iceberg.
So good morning again. I joined Google I'm in my 10th year here. We started off, who was buying ads from Google 10 years ago? Anyone in the room? Anyone? Any faces I recognise over there? So 10 blue links. All we were doing is we were serving up what we thought were the most relevant links between pages to the queries and the keywords that were put in. The world has changed. We're now doing a bunch of different services. Who's watched a YouTube video in the last 24 hours? You should be about half of you in the UK. Who's used Google Maps to get here? Who's got an Android phone they might have checked where they were coming today on? Who's got an iPhone that they checked where they're coming today on? Some of you haven't got any arms, I've noticed in the audience. It's good, good. So, what's happening? So I just want to take a couple of minutes just to set the day up with what's happening, what change is taking place, what is that technology? You know, the internet was a big technology change, but we all know the speed things are developing. I'll come back to that. The speed things are changing based on some very fundamental laws of physics and computer science, and how is that impacting on your world and how you plan your marketing and businesses today. So on the video there you saw, if we could just switch to my phone. So I was coming back from holiday. Did anyone go on holiday this summer? Let's see who's got arms. So I went to the south of France in a Volvo. I'll come back to that Volvo. It broke down. On the day I got back, it was Monday night. We were a day late. It was August bank holiday. We were supposed to come back on the Sunday. We came back on the Monday because the Volvo broke down in Avignon in France. And got home. It was about midnight. Got across the ferry in a French hire car, got home, and my daughter said to me, "Dad, I haven't done my summer work project." My 10-year-old daughter hadn't done her summer project. She needed to do it on things she loves. Holiday. Let's get, oh God, the photos of the holiday are on the, her dog. The thing she loves most in the world is her dog. She doesn't have a dog. This is the crux of this story. Her grandmother had a dog when she was about 5 or 6 and the dog died. But in her head, somewhere tucked in her head, is this dog called Tolly. And somewhere on my laptop, my desktop, all the 15,700 photographs I have in Google Cloud, you know, who sucks all their photos up into the cloud and stores them somewhere? Or even offline in a little box in the corner of a room in your house. You know you've got 17,000, 20,000, however long and however many pictures you've taken. You've got a lot of pictures. Somewhere in there is a picture when the dog died, pre-dog dying, hopefully, with my daughter. I know there is. I remember them being taken, and I needed to search for them. So here is my pictures of dogs. Search for, just on my phone back there. The only reason I didn't do it live was the Wi-Fi's kicking me off. Yeah? So here is, okay, it's a dog. That's not a live dog, is it? So none of this is any metadata. I have not been tagging up 15,000 photographs saying dog on each photo, specifically the ones that's my kid and a horse. That doesn't get dog. Minnie Mouse as well. So, you know, it's not perfect, but you could argue this might be a dog. Giraffe, doggish. So I'm my wife's friend's wedding. That's bad, isn't it? That shows up. Dog, not ideal. Very large pig, doggish. My son pretending to be a dog on a sled, you know, questionable. Okay, now we're into the business end of things, aren't we? Dogs, they're not the right dogs. Again, my son, 5 years ago, wearing his granddad's wellies, not doggish, but it's sort of small animal, you could argue. Now we're into things. This is the dog I'm looking for. This is the dead dog. Oh, there's more dead dogs at Christmas now. Oh, thank God. We are into the photos that my 10-year-old daughter has remembered from 2007, pictures of her with the dog. Okay, no metadata, nothing other than me saying into my phone, show me my pictures of dogs. It knows who I am because I'm logged into my phone. It also knows this is a dog. It's not perfect. I'm not sure where the dog is in this photo, but it's machine learning that this is a dog. How long before it knows this is Amy? In fact, it does. On my desktop, it knows the facial recognition. It can pick her up. So I could have searched for pictures of Amy, but I've got about 5,000 of them. I needed to find this dog. If you go back to the slides. So what's happening? What is the change that's moving from a thing where we can check with computers how websites are linked together, to a computer system that can start to do things for you. The key thing, exponential compute power. Who knows what Moore's law is? Okay, about a fifth of you. Computing power. Moore, the founder of Intel, silicon chips. Does anyone who put their hand up? Who wants to shout out what they think it is? At the back there, sir. Oh, beautiful. Here we go. Yes, doubling of power, compute power. Actually, it's the halving of the surface area on the chips that on the boards that the chips take, which delivers that. And it's been a law that's carried on pretty much doubling capacity every 18 months, doubling compute power every 18 months. I'll just tell you about my Volvo. My Volvo broke down in Avignon. When I was a small child, has anyone heard me talk about my Volvo before? I always check because I do this story to death. When I was a small child, I lived in South Buckinghamshire in Gerrards Cross, and every summer we would go to the south of France in a Volvo at about 60 or 70 miles an hour. And I would sit in the back and shout, "Are we there yet, Dad?" That seemed to be my main memory of life. I am now 40-something, dad with 3 kids, two girls and a boy. I had 2 older sisters. The theme repeats itself. I now drive to the south of France in a Volvo. That Volvo goes about 60 or 70 miles an hour, maybe a little bit faster, but give or take, not much has changed. Little bit of benefit, there's air conditioning, there's TV screens in the back so the kids don't scream their heads off as I did 30 years ago. But ultimately, nothing has changed. Most of our world is roughly linear. Things change a bit. We're not great at change. Every time anything changes dramatically, get a bit worried. Compute power is working on this insane statistic that it doubles. It's exponential. So let's have a little game. If it took me, say, 10 hours in 1984 to go from London to Paris or Calais to the south of France, how long would it take if that Volvo had sped up at the same speed as computers since then, as my ZX81 or my ZX Spectrum has now turned into this phone? Any guesses? How long would that journey now take? I've done the maths. 10 seconds. Good shout, sir. That's fast, isn't it? Good God, how could anything have developed that much since the 80s? 10 hours to 10 seconds. That's insane. How could you ever plan for that? Anyone else? Anyone think it's a lot faster than 10 seconds? Any guesses? Half a second. So if you take the half a second and go over twice as fast as that again, 0.225, 225 milliseconds is how long it would take me to go from Nice to Calais in a car if cars had sped up at the same speed as computers. So this exponential growth of compute power is quite hard to get your head around. If you take 30 steps linearly, you get 30 steps distance. If you take 30 steps exponentially, you can't do the third one, and by the 30th one, you're near the moon. So this exponential concept, how fast and how powerful are computers getting? They are delivering these. The only reason these exist is because you can fit the computing power into this size. The thing now limiting it is arguably battery power, lithium-cadmium resistance. That's batteries limit it, not compute power now. A lot of the compute power is going on in the cloud, up in servers, like happened when I requested the pictures. That's because we've got these devices and connectivity to the almost infinite computing capability. So all of your customers, clients, friends and family now have computing power with near infinite computing capability that can get pulled down onto it, which delivers another thing, real-world data sets. All of the photographs, all your locations, all your buying habits, all of your likes and dislikes, all of your intentions. What are the things you're doing at a certain point in time that then become real-world data sets that, with your permission, people and companies can use for useful purposes? So those are kind of the big aha, what's going on? What has taken Google from 10 blue links to where we are today to what's going on in future? So what's going on here? There's a battery in this contact lens. That's bonkers, isn't it? This is a battery. Has anyone seen these? So one of our life sciences teams in Alphabet now, which was Google pre the summer, has developed contact lenses that glow red when blood sugar levels of diabetics change. So you think, okay, that's pretty weird, isn't it? What's going on there? It's the same. The ability to, this is actually the antenna that connects to your phone, which is pretty weird. So, what is it? What's happening? How fast are these things developing? What's happening going forward? Machines are learning. We've talked about that already. They're teaching themselves what those faces look like of the dog and the children. We start to build in, moving from purely data to information, put those data sets together, from data, from information, to actually some form of wisdom and intelligence. How is it able to move from just doing things for you to making decisions for you and deciding which is the quickest route to drive from where you are now to another location? Simple example, but it demonstrates what's going on with the future of AI and how it's going to improve on services and capabilities. And lastly, probably most real now for today, how do these things lead to you being able to use data to outcompete your competition? So in my mind, I talk to a lot of different industries: finance, telco, gambling, services, and a bunch of B2B organizations. Roughly, they're all oligopolies. They've got the same access to finance from the city. They've got the same access for talent, for recruitment. They've got the same access to markets. We believe what they're doing with their data is the competitive advantage in future. We talked about our chief exec and ex-chief exec, now chairman, Eric Schmidt, talked about the billionaires, him included, used to be, in the last decade, all the billionaires pretty much were computer scientists or oil barons. But let's put them out the picture and say all of the self-made ones in the Western world were computer scientists. There's a firm belief all the future billionaires in the next 15 years will be statisticians. How do they put together the data sets that are there now to build competitive advantage? And because of those data sets and artificial intelligence and machine learning, life's getting very, very complicated at the coalface, which is marketing. How do you use all this information and data to win in your market as a marketeer? So if you just run the last video.
Today, as in right now. It's a pretty exciting time to be doing what we're all doing. Because people like this, and people like that, are now sitting together with folks like this. And the work they're making isn't like the ads we're used to. It's stuff like this, these, and whatever this is. It's connecting the real world to the web, telling more personal stories with data, and using this stuff to make our lives easier and more fun. And wow, robots. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting time. And imagine what we could make next. Welcome to art, copy, and code.
Okay, so that's me finished up. The last piece there, there's lots of stuff out there. The imagination can run riot, easy for you to say, with what's available. The data sets, the technology. The really hard part is integrating it. How do you pull it all together? What might be out there in future? What can you do now in the next year to 18 months that can take advantage of the big real-world data sets that are there out in the world and in your companies and outcompete your competition with great marketing? Thank you very much. Enjoy the day.
Kevin. Great. Thank you very much, Kevin. Kevin is always a burst of energy for a team and really great at getting us excited for every single day. So hopefully that got you guys thinking outside the box a bit. But the question you probably have is, what does that mean for you as B2B marketers? And that's what we're going to talk about for the next 30 minutes or so. But before I do that, I just want to talk a little bit about the power of Twitter. So I gave the hashtag B2B Google, and we already had our first tweet come in, which is, how do I access the Wi-Fi? So the Wi-Fi is Google Guest. There's no password on it. It's completely unlocked, so you guys can use that now. So if you have any other questions, please tweet it out, and someone at Google will magically answer. Great. So the name of today's event is Moments That Matter, right? And Kevin talked a lot about technologies changing. Now people have so many more ways of communicating with one another that we really have to think in an omni-channel approach. Think across all the boundaries and across how to reach your users on every single platform, device, et cetera. So that makes your job as marketers that much more difficult. So in the B2B space, the question is, who. Who is your audience, right? And last year, for those of you who were here for our last event, we shared a lot of insights into how the audience is changing and evolving quite quickly, apart because of all the technology that Kevin mentioned, but also they're influencing the change in technology too. So with that question, we wanted to dive a little bit deeper this year. And this year, we partnered with Global Web Index, a research firm here, actually based in the UK. I think there's a few folks here. Right, great. So we partnered with them to panel thousands of B2B buyers, influencers, and decision makers and understand what they are doing, how they're interacting with content online, and really what are the behaviors that will influence your job as marketers. And the great thing here is that this panel is global, but we had over nearly 1,000 people who were surveyed within the European market. And out of last year's event, one of the biggest questions that we had was, we want to know what this means for Europe, what this means for our market. And that was a question that we heard every single time we talked to someone. So that was the question we want to answer today. So today's research is really going to focus on Europe, as well as diving a little bit into the nuances of different countries. Because as an American, you know, I've moved here, I've been here for 2 years. It's kind of still befuddling to me that I can get on a flight in an hour and be in Germany and be speaking a different language. And there's so many different nuances for each market, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So the question is, who are B2B researchers? In this presentation, you're going to see the term researchers, and that encompasses anyone who's involved in the purchase-making process. That may be early on research, but as well as decision makers. The three things that we really take away from this, and this is not rocket science, and perhaps you've heard this before, is that they're young, they're online, and they're influential. And this all, you know, sounds pretty much like common sense when you really think about it. But we're going to dive a little bit into what are the stats that really prove this. So what we found in the research was that 40% of these B2B buyers and researchers are between the ages of 18 and 34. That's a much younger age range than perhaps what you traditionally think of as the target audience for B2B. Oftentimes working with marketers and advertisers, you know, you consider your B2B audience being someone who's skews a lot older and male, perhaps. But really, when you dig into it, you see that a lot of these influencers who are very, very powerful in decision-making process are actually very young. They're people who grew up as digital natives online, who've never known a life without a phone, without social media. These people who are very savvy. So that leads to the next part, is they are online, and they're very, very resourceful. What this shows is that these are all the different information sources that B2B researchers use throughout the process. So you'll see here it goes internet, consultants, peers, trade publications, and down the line. What's fascinating here is that internet's used twice as often as any other type of resources. But when you really think about your personal behavior, that starts to make sense. But what I think is really interesting and telling about this data point is that the internet is self-guided, right? You're not asking someone to help you go on the internet and do research. You're going on there and conducting it yourself. So whereas the behavior before perhaps was much more reliant on consultants, trade publications, events, and professional organizations, today, people are a lot more resourceful and doing a lot of that self-guided research versus perhaps going to experts who would support them in the process. And the last piece is that 1 in 2 researchers have heavy influence on the B2B decision-making cycle. And this dispels one of the big myths, is that there's a set of researchers who sit behind the door and just find all the different vendors that they want to work with, and they do a lot of scoping, RFPing, and then they provide the answer and solution to the budget holder, the C-suite or decision maker who makes that final choice. Well, those boundaries are breaking. Today, executives are researchers as well, but also these researchers are having a very big influence on the purchase process. So when you think about your audience, you have to think a lot broader, right? How do I reach everyone in an organization who touches this purchase process and who influences it too? The other myth this dispels is that a lot of people think, the decision making only happens at the C-level executive or C-level, and that they don't think beyond that. Everyone else doesn't matter. But what we've found is that managers and other researchers who are not in the C-suite have massive influence. So 60% of managers say they have decision-making power, and nearly 90% say they have at least decision-making, if not heavy influencers. And then also, those who are not in the C-suite are managers.
So I could have searched for pictures of Amy, but I've got about 5,000 of them. I needed to find this dog. If you go back to the slides. So what's happening? What is the change that's moving from a thing where we can check with computers how websites are linked together to a computer system that can start to do things for you? The key thing, exponential compute power. Who knows what Moore's law is? Okay, about a fifth of you. Computing power. Moore, the founder of Intel, silicon chips. Does anyone who put their hand up? Who wants to shout out what they think it is? At the back there, sir. Oh, beautiful. Here we go. Yes, doubling of power, compute power. Actually, it's the halving of the surface area on the chips that on the boards that the chips take, which delivers that. And it's been a law that's carried on pretty much doubling capacity every 18 months, doubling compute power every 18 months. I'll just tell you about my Volvo. My Volvo broke down in Avignon when I was a small child. Has anyone heard me talk about my Volvo before? I always check because I do this story to death. When I was a small child, I lived in South Buckinghamshire in Gerrards Cross, and every summer we would go to the south of France in a Volvo at about 60 or 70 miles an hour. And I would sit in the back and shout, "Are we there yet, Dad?" That seemed to be my main memory of life. I am now 40-something dad with 3 kids, two girls and a boy. I had 2 older sisters. The theme repeats itself. I now drive to the south of France in a Volvo. That Volvo goes about 60 or 70 miles an hour, maybe a little bit faster, but give or take, not much has changed. Little bit of benefit, there's air conditioning, there's TV screens in the back so the kids don't scream their heads off as I did 30 years ago. But ultimately, nothing has changed. Most of our world is roughly linear. Things change a bit. We're not great at change. Every time anything changes dramatically, get a bit worried. Compute power is working on this insane statistic that it doubles, it's exponential. So let's have a little game. If it took me, say, 10 hours in 1984 to go from London to Paris or Calais to the south of France, how long would it take if that Volvo had sped up at the same speed as computers since then, as my ZX81 or my ZX Spectrum has now turned into this phone? Any guesses? How long would that journey now take? I've done the maths. 10 seconds. Good shout, sir. That's fast, isn't it? Good God, how could anything have developed that much since the 80s? 10 hours to 10 seconds. That's insane. How could you ever plan for that? Anyone else? Anyone think it's a lot faster than 10 seconds? Any guesses? Half a second. So if you take the half a second and go over twice as fast as that again, 0.225, 225 milliseconds is how long it would take me to go from Nice to Calais in a car if cars had sped up at the same speed as computers. So this exponential growth of compute power is quite hard to get your head around. If you take 30 steps linearly, you get 30 steps distance. If you take 30 steps exponentially, you can't do the third one, and by the 30th one, you're near the moon. So this exponential concept, how fast and how powerful are computers getting? They are delivering these. The only reason these exist is because you can fit the computing power into this size. The thing now limiting it is arguably battery power, lithium-cadmium resistance. That's batteries limit it, not compute power now. A lot of the compute power is going on in the cloud, up in servers, like happened when I requested the pictures. That's because we've got these devices and connectivity to the almost infinite computing capability. So all of your customers, clients, friends and family now have computing power with near infinite computing capability that can get pulled down onto it, which delivers another thing, real-world data sets. All of the photographs, all your locations, all your buying habits, all of your likes and dislikes, all of your intentions. What are the things you're doing at a certain point in time that then become real-world data sets that, with your permission, people and companies can use for useful purposes? So those are kind of the big aha, what's going on? What has taken Google from 10 blue links to where we are today to what's going on in future? So what's going on here? There's a battery in this contact lens. That's bonkers, isn't it? This is a battery. Has anyone seen these? So one of our life sciences teams in Alphabet now, which was Google pre the summer, has developed contact lenses that glow red when blood sugar levels of diabetics change. So you think, okay, that's pretty weird, isn't it? What's going on there? It's the same. The ability to, this is actually the antenna that connects to your phone, which is pretty weird. So, what is it? What's happening? How fast are these things developing? What's happening going forward? Machines are learning. We've talked about that already. They're teaching themselves what those faces look like of the dog and the children. We start to build in, moving from purely data to information, put those data sets together, from data, from information, to actually some form of wisdom and intelligence. How is it able to move from just doing things for you to making decisions for you and deciding which is the quickest route to drive from where you are now to another location? Simple example, but it demonstrates what's going on with the future of AI and how it's going to improve on services and capabilities. And lastly, probably most real now for today, how do these things lead to you being able to use data to outcompete your competition? So in my mind, I talk to a lot of different industries: finance, telco, gambling, services, and a bunch of B2B organizations. Roughly, they're all oligopolies. They've got the same access to finance from the city. They've got the same access for talent, for recruitment. They've got the same access to markets. We believe what they're doing with their data is the competitive advantage in future. We talked about our chief exec and ex-chief exec, now chairman, Eric Schmidt, talked about the billionaires, him included, used to be, in the last decade, all the billionaires pretty much were computer scientists or oil barons. But let's put them out the picture and say all of the self-made ones in the Western world were computer scientists. There's a firm belief all the future billionaires in the next 15 years will be statisticians. How do they put together the data sets that are there now to build competitive advantage? And because of those data sets and artificial intelligence and machine learning, life's getting very, very complicated at the coalface, which is marketing. How do you use all this information and data to win in your market as a marketeer? So if you just run the last video.
Today, as in right now. It's a pretty exciting time to be doing what we're all doing. Because people like this, and people like that, are now sitting together with folks like this. And the work they're making isn't like the ads we're used to. It's stuff like this, these, and whatever this is. It's connecting the real world to the web, telling more personal stories with data, and using this stuff to make our lives easier and more fun. And wow, robots. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting time. And imagine what we could make next. Welcome to art, copy, and code.
Okay, so that's me finished up. The last piece there, there's lots of stuff out there. The imagination can run riot, easy for you to say, with what's available. The data sets, the technology. The really hard part is integrating it. How do you pull it all together? What might be out there in future? What can you do now in the next year to 18 months that can take advantage of the big real-world data sets that are there out in the world and in your companies and outcompete your competition with great marketing? Thank you very much. Enjoy the day.
Kevin. Great. Thank you very much, Kevin. Kevin is always a burst of energy for a team and really great at getting us excited for every single day. So hopefully that got you guys thinking outside the box a bit. But the question you probably have is, what does that mean for you as B2B marketers? And that's what we're going to talk about for the next 30 minutes or so. But before I do that, I just want to talk a little bit about the power of Twitter. So I gave the hashtag B2B Google, and we already had our first tweet come in, which is, how do I access the Wi-Fi? So the Wi-Fi is Google Guest. There's no password on it. It's completely unlocked, so you guys can use that now. So if you have any other questions, please tweet it out, and someone at Google will magically answer. Great. So the name of today's event is Moments That Matter, right? And Kevin talked a lot about technologies changing. Now people have so many more ways of communicating with one another that we really have to think in an omni-channel approach. Think across all the boundaries and across how to reach your users on every single platform, device, etc. So that makes your job as marketers that much more difficult. So in the B2B space, the question is who? Who is your audience, right? And last year, for those of you who were here for our last event, we shared a lot of insights into how the audience is changing and evolving quite quickly, apart because of all the technology that Kevin mentioned, but also they're influencing the change in technology too. So with that question, we wanted to dive a little bit deeper this year. And this year, we partnered with Global Web Index, a research firm here, actually based in the UK. I think there's a few folks here. Right, great. So we partnered with them to panel thousands of B2B buyers, influencers, and decision makers and understand what they are doing, how they're interacting with content online, and really what are the behaviors that will influence your job as marketers. And the great thing here is that this panel is global, but we had nearly 1,000 people who were surveyed within the European market. And out of last year's event, one of the biggest questions that we had was, we want to know what this means for Europe, what this means for our market. And that was a question that we heard every single time we talked to someone. So that was the question we want to answer today. So today's research is really going to focus on Europe, as well as diving a little bit into the nuances of different countries. Because as an American, you know, I've moved here, I've been here for 2 years. It's kind of still befuddling to me that I can get on a flight in an hour and be in Germany and be speaking a different language. And there's so many different nuances for each market, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So the question is, who are B2B researchers? In this presentation, you're going to see the term researchers, and that encompasses anyone who's involved in the purchase-making process. That may be early on research, but as well as decision makers. The three things that we really take away from this, and this is not rocket science, and perhaps you've heard this before, is that they're young, they're online, and they're influential. And this all, you know, sounds pretty much like common sense when you really think about it. But we're going to dive a little bit into what are the stats that really prove this. So what we found in the research was that 40% of these B2B buyers and researchers are between the ages of 18 and 34. That's a much younger age range than perhaps what you traditionally think of as the target audience for B2B. Oftentimes working with marketers and advertisers, you know, you consider your B2B audience being someone who's skews a lot older and male, perhaps. But really, when you dig into it, you see that a lot of these influencers who are very, very powerful in decision-making process are actually very young. They're people who grew up as digital natives online, who've never known a life without a phone, without social media. These people who are very savvy. So that leads to the next part, is they are online, and they're very, very resourceful. What this shows is that these are all the different information sources that B2B researchers use throughout the process. So you'll see here it goes internet, consultants, peers, trade publications, and down the line. What's fascinating here is that internet's used twice as often as any other type of resources. But when you really think about your personal behavior, that starts to make sense. But what I think is really interesting and telling about this data point is that the internet is self-guided, right? You're not asking someone to help you go on the internet and do research. You're going on there and conducting it yourself. So whereas the behavior before perhaps was much more reliant on consultants, trade publications, events, and professional organizations, today, people are a lot more resourceful and doing a lot of that self-guided research versus perhaps going to experts who would support them in the process. And the last piece is that 1 in 2 researchers have heavy influence on the B2B decision-making cycle. And this dispels one of the big myths, is that there's a set of researchers who sit behind the door and just find all the different vendors that they want to work with, and they do a lot of scoping, RFPing, and then they provide the answer and solution to the budget holder, the C-suite or decision maker who makes that final choice. Well, those boundaries are breaking. Today, executives are researchers as well, but also these researchers are having a very big influence on the purchase process. So when you think about your audience, you have to think a lot broader, right? How do I reach everyone in an organization who touches this purchase process and who influences it too? The other myth this dispels is that a lot of people think the decision making only happens at the C-level executive or C-level, and that they don't think beyond that. Everyone else doesn't matter. But what we've found is that managers and other researchers who are not in the C-suite have massive influence. So 60% of managers say they have decision-making power, and nearly 90 say they have at least decision-making, if not heavy influencer. And then also, those who are not in the C-suite are managers, so these may be IT consultants, anyone at a lower level. 30% say they have decision-making power, and 50% say they have at least influence. So when you really think about it, you really have to think much broader rather than linearly about who your audience is today. So I wanted to bring a little anecdote in. This is Aziz Ansari. Anyone familiar with who Aziz Ansari is? He's a comedian, so you might have seen him in the sitcom Parks and Recreations. But he recently released a book called Modern Romance, and I was reading this book for no reason. I'm not looking for romance. I was just purely doing some research. And he talks about how today's world, people and the way they meet one another, to go on dates, whatnot, has changed dramatically, right? So this quote I love. He said, "Our romantic options are unprecedented, and our tools to sort and communicate with them are staggering." So today, before you go on a date with someone, you probably know everything about that person. Before you go on that first date, you've looked at their Twitter handle, you've gone on Instagram, you've gone on Facebook, you've probably met them on Tinder or somewhere else, you've looked at their LinkedIn, you looked at every single piece of information online about them to build a profile of who they are, so that by the time you sit down with them to have sushi, you pretty much know everything about them. And I thought this was an interesting anecdote that relates to B2B in a sense, right? That by the time your customers are coming to you, they know so much about your business because there's so much information online that they can build, they can find reviews, they can find testimonials, they can find everything about your product. And that makes those initial touch points that much more critical. So if you compare this modern romance to the purchase path, we kind of dispel, we want to change it, but if you look at the linear process, it's as simple as researching, purchasing, and some review afterwards, so the customer life cycle here. Really, all this data, what's changed is that now people are spending a lot more time researching, so they're doing a lot more of that research right up front, self-guided. You perhaps saw the stat last year, we talked about 57% of the purchase process is complete before a customer reaches out to a vendor. So this really holds true. They're spending a lot more time doing this self-directed research. By the time they're ready to purchase, they're a lot more informed and they're ready to make a faster purchase. But something else we'll touch on here is that in the research, we actually found that the review process, so post-purchase, when they're considering who their vendor is and perhaps even considering other options, that happens a lot more frequently than some might think. Great. So more informed decisions has been a result of a lot of this research. People are a lot more informed and they're ready to make a decision. What we found in this panel is that almost the vast majority of researchers said they choose from less than 4 providers and vendors. Very few said that they do 5 or more. In fact, a very large portion, around 30% if not more, said by the time they're ready to purchase, they're only thinking across 1 or 2 different suppliers. So if you think about it, now your job is critical. How do I get into that consideration set? How can I make myself amongst one of those 2, right? So if you think about, traditionally, if someone's making a big purchase, they perhaps send out an RFP for 10, 15 different suppliers and vendors. Now, by the time they're ready to make that choice, they're only selecting from very few. But one nuance that we saw in this research was that it varies by market too. So when we looked at those same data points for UK, we actually saw a much larger amount consider 3 to 4 versus 1 to 2. If you think about it, a lot of markets here like the UK are far more competitive. Obviously, there will be nuances in different industries. You guys work in a host of different industries, but the standard holds true is that in a much more competitive market where there's a lot more players involved, a lot of newer businesses involved, there's a lot more choices for your audience to think about too. So you really have to start considering who your competitive set is and how competitive each market is based on the country that you're really trying to penetrate into. And then now we go to that post-purchase piece that I talked about previously. And this actually, the stat kind of took us by surprise a little bit initially because we weren't looking for this when we initially did this research. What we found is that of all the buyers who had made a purchase, 66% of them evaluate their providers annually. I came from a background of IT consulting for the US federal government, so that sounds like a really sexy job, and it really was. And we would spend months, if not years, building an RFP just to determine who that provider would be for their ERP solution. And then the hope is that once they chose, they would stick with that person for years to come because the implementation process in and of itself would take years to happen. But with technology changing, a lot of what Kevin discussed, now everything's in the cloud, software as a service, things are on demand. This enables companies to reconsider who their providers are much more frequently. because that implementation process is not nearly as long and cumbersome as it was before. So really, when you think about it, now this makes your job in how to nurture them post-purchase, how to make sure they're constantly engaged with your company, also a big challenge for marketers. So I just kind of stole my own thunder. What does this mean? What does this mean for you? Right? A lot of what Kevin discussed and what we discussed today may seem very daunting. Now we're talking about not just reaching your users with Google search or before email marketing. We're talking how do we talk with them, how do we build a conversation on social media, on their watches, on their phones, on their tablets, in newspapers, in every single point. Well, that's really what we're trying to get at today, is that marketers must stay engaged and relevant throughout the entire process. So while that may sound daunting, we're going to spend the next couple of hours today discussing a lot of different tactics and how a lot of your peers and colleagues have tackled this exact challenge. The thing about being consistent and relevant, it's not just always being in their face, not just throwing messages and outbound messaging at them. It's about being consistent. So this is actually, I think, from McKinsey, but what they found was that 65% of EU B2B buyers are frustrated by inconsistent experiences. So they hate when they have an inconsistent experience with a brand throughout the purchase cycle. And I really like the stock photo, because this guy is like the epitome of a frustrated European buyer. As you can see, he's obviously very perplexed right now. But that really gets to your point, right? It's not just about having all the content, but it's about having the right message that is consistent at every touch point. The other piece is that this is from Forrest, is that they found that 95% of B2B buyers chose the provider with ample content to navigate them throughout the entire journey. Now, this really speaks to the need to break down silos in an organization. You can't just have a brand team versus having a demand generation team versus having a sales team. You have to make sure that you understand all the different touch points, all your content that you have available that will reach them at every single point in the purchase process. And I think that organizational challenge is one of the biggest, but when that's resolved, and we'll talk about and show some examples from companies who are doing this, that the results are very powerful. So to begin that journey, you're at Google, so we're going to talk about search a little bit, okay? So search, what we found in the research is that search is seen as the #1 source. It's typically the first point of contact when someone's doing that research online on digital. But we at Google say, our job is not to keep people on google.com. It's to get them on and then get them off as quickly as possible so they can find the information that they're looking for. So it's #1 source, but it's also the #1 most trusted source. So 4 in 5 of the panel said that search was the most trustworthy or the most useful. So they found it to be the most useful and resourceful. They're not just using it, but this is something that is like a utility for them. They really need it because it provides an objective viewpoint. And the great thing in B2B is that we're finding that queries are growing. We do a lot of query analysis, and perhaps you've worked with your Google teams on this before, but what we're seeing in B2B is that we see in Europe alone, there's a 12% year-over-year growth rate for queries relevant to a lot of your businesses. And we compile and index millions of queries around B2B topics here. And the great thing is that they're not only searching more, but they're searching with more aggressiveness and frequency. So every single day, we see that B2B buyers are searching nearly 3 times per day. So that frequency of search means if you get down to a tactical level and think about your SEO and SEM strategy, how can I make sure I use retargeting lists, remarketing lists to build the right message as they're coming back and searching more times? And that really adds that audience layer on to your search strategy today. What's really driving that 12% growth that I showed last is mobile. And we're going to talk about mobile quite a bit today. And perhaps any digital industry event you guys have gone to in the past year or so, mobile is a big topic. And I think it's something we cannot ignore at all. And we constantly have conversations about mobile with B2B companies, marketers, and agencies, and it is a big challenge. It absolutely is. But we all, as users, know that it's here, and it's a part of our daily lives. As I'm looking at the audience, most of you guys have multiple devices on you, mostly of different screen sizes. So think about, put yourself in the customer's shoe and how they're engaging on mobile devices. So in Google in general, we find that over half of all searches are coming in on mobile devices. And that volume of search varies by country. So if you look at the top 5 European countries by volume of mobile searches, I don't think it's too surprising. The UK has the most, Germany, Italy, France, and then Russia not far behind. So there's a very large audience searching for B2B related queries on google.com. But perhaps what is more interesting is the level of growth. So I cited that 12% year-over-year growth rate. In the last 3 years alone, the number of mobile B2B searches on Google has quadrupled. Okay, so if you think about compared to 2012 to today, that's 4 times more searches coming on a mobile or tablet device than before. That's a massive volume, and I think that growth alone cannot be ignored at all. Now, as I promised, we get down to a little bit of country level. So how does this vary by different countries? We're seeing some of the highest growth rates coming from not the core markets, but some of the other ones. So not UK or Germany, but I'm like, I have to do my geography test here. I think that's Norway. Norway at 79% growth. Russia at 115, so double growth. Poland at 109%. France at 70% year-over-year growth. This is all year-over-year. Italy at 75%. Portugal at 112% growth. And Greece at 93% growth. I think I got all those countries correct because no one's looking at me strangely. Because if you can imagine, right, that's a massive growth just year over year in the number of searches that are coming from mobile device. People are frequently going to their mobile devices as their first point of contact with the internet, far over desktop devices. And if you look at this number in some developing markets, we did this research for APAC, but we haven't really dug into that data. But if you look at a country like India, many of the citizens there, their first point of contact with internet has been a mobile device. They never knew a world before mobile devices, and that's their first, if not only, point of contact. So now we know that people are searching, but what are they looking for, and what type of content do they want to engage with? So in the study, we found the top 5 things that people were looking for on mobile devices were the following. They're comparing prices, reading reviews, finding product information, comparing features, and then locating a retailer. Mobile device is all about recency. It's all about location. So I don't think any of these answers are very surprising. People want to be able to, on the spot, understand, where can I find this? And they want to do a lot of competitive comparisons. So I thought that was interesting, is a lot of comparisons, kind of queries like prices, reviews, and features, comparing features, skewed very high in the survey. And then another part of the survey was that while we know that search is big on mobile devices, we actually found that social and video engagement indexed even higher on mobile devices compared to desktop. So if you think about when you look at Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, think about which device you're looking at mostly. I'm going to safely assume that most of you guys access a lot of these apps and these different properties on your mobile device before you do it on your desktop. So we actually find that at YouTube, over 50% of all traffic actually comes from a mobile device versus a desktop. That's a vast amount. And we've actually done this research with a lot of different B2B advertisers. But when we look at video engagement rates and view times, we actually find that the engagement rates on a mobile and tablet device are as long, if not longer, than how long someone is viewing that same video on a desktop. So if you guys have video campaigns, if you have any videos on YouTube or you're running paid advertising, I definitely encourage you to take a look at the device level data to see where your views coming from, but more importantly, where your engaged views coming from too. So we're going to dive a little bit into video because really we see video as one of the biggest content choices that people are going to and veering to on their mobile devices because it's easy to consume on the go, it takes up that full screen experience, and it's very adaptable to every screen size. So when it comes to video, what content are B2B researchers looking for? When they're looking for videos, they're looking for product information, tutorials, testimonials, research, as well as event content. We're going to have Vice speak later this afternoon to really get you guys excited about how to create amazing content. And I think that's a lot of the hero content we're talking about, telling stories with them. But the thing to not forget is that people aren't always just looking for the latest and greatest. They want all that resourceful information that they need. That's why you find a lot of your videos around tutorials and product demonstrations actually have long lifespans on YouTube, and they get very engaged views throughout the process. So, just like you'd be inventorying your content strategy, perhaps with white papers, events, whatnot, make sure you're inventorying your videos online and understanding what type of video content are we providing to our users, and where is the engagement coming from, and what are they looking for. There's a lot of metadata there on YouTube and a lot of audience data that I think, in my personal mind, a lot of people aren't really tapping into, that analytics that's there. That's a massive big data set that I think is going unnoticed quite often. So the challenge with video. Now let's move to the challenge that we're finding here. is that of those who were surveyed, 17% said that they were satisfied with the quality of business-related videos. Only 17% said they're satisfied with that quality. So back to the previous thing, it's not just about quantity. It's not about how many thousands of videos you can post on Facebook and YouTube and just hope and pray for something to go viral. It's about the quality of the content. And I think that's really critical. And quality does not always mean high production value. It means having a good story, making sure you're presenting yourself in a consistent fashion across every single video touch point. But the other thing that was a big challenge for B2B buyers is that over a third of them said that they don't know that these videos even exist. They didn't even know that they existed, or they say that they're very hard to find, right? So what's the purpose of putting a video online if no one's ever going to find it? We cross this bridge quite often, where I think a lot of companies don't realize how many videos that they have, but they just post it online and hope and pray someone will come and watch it. But if you're not really thinking strategically about that process of promoting your videos and making them discoverable through social media and other platforms, then they're just sitting there as some content that's going unused forever. I know I'm making that sound really dramatic, forever. But again, there's variations by different countries. So what we found here is that quality of content varies widely by country. So that 17%, UK by far skewed the highest in that over a fourth of all the respondents said that they found the video content for business-related videos to be of high quality. I don't think that 28% is particularly high of a number, so there's definitely still some frustration here, but this is much healthier than a lot of other markets that we looked at here. So if we go to some of the other markets, we found that in Spain, only 17% of respondents said that they're satisfied with the quality of the video. France, 16%, Netherlands, 9%, and Sweden, 6%. If you think about this, what are some of the correlations here? Oftentimes what we see in such a diverse geography in a region, many companies start with English first videos. They post on there and then hope there's some way of getting them to other countries. But very little content is localized. Very little content is developed in the local language or translated. So it's not surprising to see some of these countries express very high frustration in the quality of the videos. If it's not relevant to them, if they can't even understand it, then what's the point of having that video for that audience? So I want to share some good examples of what we think really strong video content is. Is there anyone from IBM in the room? Maybe? Oh, yes, cool. So this is a really good example of having not only the quality, but also having the quantity, both together. So Made with IBM was their campaign last year. And this is like the hero video that was released in various countries. And if you look on this on YouTube, you'll see these types of videos get hundreds of thousands of views. But what was more powerful about this and really gave this campaign legs is the story behind it, right? So they developed dozens of case studies, many of which showed customers in different countries behind that one single layer, that TV commercial. And each of these different videos had tens of thousands of views. So giving your customers an experience, a longer story versus just one video, really pays off dividends. And later this afternoon, you're going to hear from RS Components, who's going to talk about how video was a key part of helping bring their brand alive online. And integrating into all your content strategy is also extremely critical and something that IBM has done particularly well. But we've talked about mobile, we've talked about search, we talked about video. These are great, your content strategy is great, but if you don't have a great website, all of this is pretty much useless. So what we found is when people move to the purchase process from research, the number one source of information and the number one most critical platform for them was their website, the vendor and provider's website. And last year you may have seen the research is that if your website, particularly your mobile website's not good, 3 out of 4 of those potential customers will leave and never come back again. So as you think about this, you really have to think, what is my website strategy? Do I have an adaptive website to make sure my users can find me on every screen? And later on, Catherine from our mobile team will talk a little bit about some of those strategies for a great website, especially for the mobile platform. So on your website, what's critical? And what we found here was that you have to keep your brand consistent, but your content localized. So one myth we dispelled here was that only a fifth of those who are researching found that buying from a local regional brand was critical. Only a fifth. So it's okay for those who are multinational companies, who are large companies with presence in every country, to have that consistent brand experience. That is absolutely crucial. So don't think you're at a disadvantage if you're playing against some local competitors who may understand the nuance of the market a little bit more. But while that may hold true, the one thing to counter that is this. 70% of all the buyers said that having a website in their native language with localized content is important or extremely important, right? So while you may keep your brand consistent in every country, if you have an English website in every single country, you're going to be missing out on a vast amount of audience members and customers who can't interact with you in that country. So as we looked in different countries, we found that localization piece, whether it's through service, online content, or even support, localization in native language is one of the most critical, if not the most critical factor for their motivation to purchase. And then beyond just your content, it's also tailoring your message, understanding what motivates your audience to purchase. And when we looked across the European market, what we found is that best value was by far the top reason why a person or a company chose to purchase from a vendor or a B2B provider. Best value. And then almost across the board in every single market, we found the next few were to be reliability, security, and implementation. So if you think about today in a world of big data and a lot of technological advancement, security is a massive feature that many, many, many companies value very, very heavily now today more than ever before. But one other nuance here that I thought was interesting was that value was by far the top reason. So 20% of the respondents said that value was the biggest reason. But only 10% said that price was. So when you think about your content messaging and messaging what you're offering, it's not about discounts or offers or price. It's about value to the customer. What are you helping with them? So perhaps you have a higher price, but if you can really convey what the value of your brand is and your solution is, that's going to trump price every single time. So I think I'm right on time. So to bring it all together for this session, there are a few key ideas that the next few sections will go into a lot deeper. And those are thinking beyond the C-suite. Your target audience is a lot younger, they're a lot more informed, they're a lot savvier and influential than ever before. You have to keep your brand top of mind throughout the entire process, not just through the purchase, but beyond purchase, right? How do you stay engaged post-purchase? And that's where tactics like social media come really in handy. You know, like someone told me there's no Wi-Fi today, so we got you in the door, but then we're helping with social media to get you Wi-Fi. And then give your customers the breadth and depth of content that they're looking for to help them make a more informed decision. So for the next few sections, before we go to break, we're going to actually take a little dive into one subsector. This research looked at a lot of different industries, a lot of different audience types. And something we've heard a lot from our customers is we want to target the SMB audience. Well, how do we do that, right? SMB and the small business growth is massive. Even here in the UK, you see there's tens of thousands of new small businesses coming online all the time. And so this becomes a really critical audience and segment for you guys as businesses. So what we're going to do now is dive into a little bit into that research that I just shared, but specific to the SMB subset, and also share some tactics on Google that will enable you to reach that audience more effectively. And then after break, we're going to come back and hear a really great story about how Leading Brand has gone from a product-centric approach to an audience-first approach for their own marketing strategy. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fearghal and Simon at Google. Fearghal is an industry manager for our B2B sector, and Simon's our head of audience and display activation. And they're going to talk a little bit about some of the nuances for the SMB audience. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So David offered us a first. It was the first time that it was the first time that we conducted European-specific B2B research. In the past, we've done global research that's been heavily skewed towards the US, and we used it directionally for indications to what was taking place in Europe. Well, how useful was it? Who was paying attention? Let's do a quick test. Can anybody tell me what percentage of European B2B buyers were frustrated by the inconsistent experience they saw online? 17, good guess. No, it wasn't. 65, well done. What's your name? And where are you from? Well done. You just won yourself a Chromecast, so come and see me afterwards and collect it. And there'll be more giveaways throughout the event. Alice. Cool, so you don't have to wait to the break. So David told us that there are three main takeaways, essentially. The European B2B audience was young, it was online, and it was influential. But this hold true for the broader, does this hold true across all of the sectors? Does it hold true for SMB audiences, the micro sector, and indeed the large sector? So what we're going to do now is offer you another first. For the first time, we decided to conduct our research at the sector level. So I will share some nuances as to the SMB audience and how they differ to the broader B2B audience. Then, once we have that clearer understanding of the SMB audience, I'll hand over to Simon, who's the head of our performance and audience team. And Simon will help us understand how we can more effectively reach that SMB audience. Then, as David said, we'll take a much needed break, take some coffee, some refreshments, and then we'll come back into the room and hear from Neil Morgan, EVP of Global Digital Marketing at Sage, who is spearheading the transformation that Sage are taking place at the moment to better position themselves for success. So, without further ado, let's go straight into the research. This research builds on the research that David presented, right? So the themes are going to be quite similar, but we're going to focus on the nuances. So where are those differences? How does the SMB differ to the broader B2B audience? And that's what we will share with you now. We define the sectors based on the employee size of the company. So 1 to 24 was the micro, SMB was 25 to 499, and then large enterprise was 500 and above. And there's research that will come to you in three forms: the who, the how, and the what. So who is the SMB buyer and how do they differ? How do they perform that path to purchase? What is their online behavior like? What are the channels that they're using? And then finally, what? What is important to them? What are they looking for as they conduct that research along the path to purchase? So first of all, the who. So David said to us that 40% of the B2B buyers, broader B2B buyers, were in the age category of 18 to 34, right? And let's think about that for a moment. That means that the oldest person in that cohort was born in 1981, joined the workforce at the tail end of the dot-com boom, and BlackBerry was a sought-after device, right? Today, is that still the case? The younger people in that audience are far more digitally native, right? They are the people that we now need to think about. If we combine the 18 to 34-year-old with the 35 to 45-year-old, still within broader B2B, 63% of the entire B2B audience sits within that sector. So how does this compare to SMB? Well, SMB is even younger. When we look at the 18 to 45-year-olds within SMB, 70% of the B2B audience sits within that age category. The gender profile is quite similar, 65 to 35 male to female for both SMB and the broader B2B. So let's have a look at the how. How are they using those channels? Bearing in mind that they're younger, they're digitally native, they're more digitally savvy or centric. David alluded to the fact that they're using the internet. So let's dig into that a little bit in a little bit more detail. So thankfully for us here at Google, we were delighted, needless to say, to see that search engines are the #1 source. Great. But your websites are still very, very important to them. They're the second most important source they turn to. What was interesting, however, is when you classify all other online media, such as online publications, social media, blogs, etc., they were far less relevant, right? But they were still more relevant and more important to them than the offline media sources, such as TV, magazine, newspapers, and the like. So, actually, let me go back one slide if I can. Let's ask yourselves a question. How does your budget align to that broader media consumption for SMB? Do you think you're aligned in the way that your audience are using the various channels along their path to purchase? Now, the growth in mobile has been well documented, right? David alluded to the fact that we've seen a 4x growth in the last 3 years of B2B queries on mobile, right? But we decided to again go one step further. Let's have a look at the individual sectors to see if there was any nuances that existed for SMB versus micro versus larger enterprise. And SMB showed twice as much adoption for mobile as it did micro. and significantly higher than larger enterprises also, right? And what was interesting for us actually is when we started looking at the data across the countries, we saw that the UK had the highest adoption of all of the SMB audiences for mobile. And if we move beyond the device from where the queries are coming from, and we look at the size of the consideration set based on the size of the company that somebody was in, we notice a trend, which can be best summarized as the smaller the company, the more likely the propensity to have a smaller consideration set, and therefore the higher the opportunity to get in and be part of that consideration set. Okay? And if we add then the larger consideration sets, what we see is the reverse. So larger enterprises have a larger consideration sets, which again, I suppose, is kind of logical when you think about that they're more likely to have a procurement team and a purchasing team that they have to, and processes that they have to follow. But it's worth just noting that 60% of the SMB audience still have a consideration set of only 3 to 4. That's still relatively small. And are we in the right spots? Are we in those moments that matter to get into that consideration set? Finally, let's look at the what. What is important to the SMB audience over the other sectors? Well, price and value is again one of the things that the SMB audience, like the broader audience, are most interested in, followed by ease of use and customer support. Interestingly, for the SMB audience, bundled services and scalability wasn't quite as important to them. But what was very interesting is when we started to look at this data across the countries. If we look at the UK, price and value was significantly more important to the SMB audience in the UK than it was their European counterparts. But it was no longer the number one attribute that they were looking for. Customer support was. It jumped from 70 to 88%, which is a staggering increase. Bundled services, however, didn't really matter for these SMB guys based here in the UK, at least not to the same extent as did their European counterparts. So there are some nuances that exist for the SMB audience across the markets, which we need to be mindful of. Finally, let's have a look at what's important for these markets, the top European markets, the France, Germany, and the UK. In France, it was the top attribute people were looking for was service guarantees. In Germany, it was new features. And as we just saw, in the UK, it was customer support. Localization is key, without a doubt. But I think what's interesting is if we look at the amount of loyalty that exists to local brands, we often feel that there is, we can't go into that market because that competitor's there and there's a loyalty to that brand. Well, in fact, as long as we localize our content, we have that translated website, we have local sales representative and local customer support, it's fair game as far as we can see from our research. So there are just a few of the nuances, a few of the highlights that we gleaned from the research to really look at how the SMB audience differs to the broader B2B audience. So hopefully with that clearer understanding, we can now, with a clearer mindset, go about reaching that audience. And to lead us through that, I would like to welcome on stage Simon Trewava, who is our head of the performance and audience team. Please welcome Simon.
Thanks, Nick. Lovely. Thank you very much, Fearghal, and I'm very happy to be here this morning. So my name's Simon. I run a small performance unit here in the UK. We look after the ways in which you can get the most out of your display advertising. So a lot of customers come to us and talk about audience solutions and about onboarding CRM data. I'm going to take you through a few different things this morning. But first of all, a quick kind of recap then from what I have heard. I might even reference Kevin's dog, or even Kevin's grandma's dog, I think, later on. So quick thing then. Very small amount of vendors are being considered. So for me, that makes me start to think about if we're trying to reach this audience, then potentially what we've got to do is get onto that short list, but potentially get there a little bit earlier. So when people are thinking about that consideration phase, are they considering your brand and actually what they could do next in terms of their purchasing decision? We've heard a lot about the age range, the demographic. So actually, do we need to start over-indexing now on a slightly younger audience because they're taking the purchasing decisions these days? Tailoring the message. So in terms of when you're speaking to that audience, do we need to be a little bit different? David had some lovely slides talking about actually what was it that would make people really choose your brand? Is it the reliability? Was it the best price? Was it the value? Mobile. Big over-indexing on mobile. So when Kevin asked everyone to raise their hands, essentially you had a mobile phone. I'll take it as read that everyone was on the same page there. And then the last piece as well, how can we make sure we're continually having the right conversations at the right time? How can we take care of our best customers that we have? So the next 10 minutes or so, all I want to do is turn the lights on and let you know about what we're doing with different customers and how they're making the most of the solutions that we have. Hope that's okay. I think everyone in this room is very familiar with Google. We had a couple of people in the audience who have used us for 10 years or so, which is amazing. The products that we have essentially means we have incredible reach now across the globe. When I think about Android, we touch more than 1 billion people. When I think about YouTube, we touch more than 1 billion people. With Gmail, it might surprise you, we now touch over 900 million people globally, and 75% of them are using both desktop and mobile to access their Gmail. So you've got incredible reach of an audience across the globe, which clearly we can segment by your local markets. But we've also got the processing power. I'd love to be in Kevin's new version of his Volvo, going to France in whatever it was, under half or a quarter of a second. We've got all the processing power to understand all the signals that we have and make it easily accessible to you. So I know you've heard it's a complex world that we're living in these days. What we're trying to do is make it actually really simple to take advantage of all the data that we have, any data that you have as well, and then leverage that in your marketing. And by doing so, you're in a really programmatic world. And that's the place where we'd love you to be. So we'll quickly walk through 2 areas. There's your data. And we're getting more sophisticated about how we can onboard your data. And lots of clients are coming to us these days saying, actually, it's the offline data we'd like to import into AdWords to get the most out of our digital marketing. So there's different ways in which we're beginning to do that, and we'll touch on that in 5 or 6 minutes' time. But there's also the Google data that we have as well. So when I said we reach a lot of people, we reach a lot of people. In the Google Display Network, we have over 2 million publishers. And so we see a huge amount of audiences globally. And we can understand what they're doing. And we can put them into certain segments to make use of them for yourselves. So we're going to go through some of the behavioral signals that we're picking up to segment and put audience into affinity categories, custom affinity categories, and in-market categories. I will unpack those for you in a couple of minutes' time. But we'll start with affinity audiences. So affinity audiences. Let's think back to Kevin's daughter. I checked this as Kevin was chatting, so I thought it would be quite entertaining, or maybe not. So affinity audiences, these are audiences that we see across our properties, which have a real passion for something. So let's think about Kevin's daughter. She had a real passion for dogs. Turns out we've got an affinity category for dog lovers. We've got about 30 million cookies in the UK of people who are really passionate about dogs, and we put them into that affinity group. Is anyone here looking to target dog lovers? Good, I'm in the right place. So I figured I should be a bit more specific about what you might be looking to target. So I started thinking about, is it business professionals that we're looking to target? And in the UK, we can reach about 23 million cookies of people who are aged 18 to 44. Now, I'm going to call this out now. I'm doing this within the AdWords interface, and I know there'll be a good percentage of this audience who's very au fait with the AdWords interface. So it's something which a lot of people use day in, day out, and you can literally surface this data. All I'm going to show you in the next couple of minutes, you can surface this data for yourself in like 5 minutes flat. It's very, very simple to do. Now, business professionals seems quite wide-ranging, and to Fearghal's point, actually perhaps we need to be a little bit more precise with who we're targeting, who we're looking to target. So what we can do is we can build your own custom affinity audiences. So I'm going to explain actually what we do and how we do it now with the technology here. So very simply, what you can do is you can go into our technology, into our AdWords interface, and you can put down 10 URLs of your website, to start off with potentially, that really define the greatest content that you have. And here's why. What we'll do is we'll point our technology at those URLs that you've uploaded. We'll understand the essence, the context, what's going on the page, and then we'll go out across the internet and we'll collect a pool of cookies of an audience who like to read about that kind of content. So if the website, if the URLs you upload are a really good representation of your brand and contains the kind of content that you know will empower your audience to go out and make a purchasing decision, then actually we'll go out across the internet and we'll find a like-minded audience. That's the start point. You could then take it further. You could think about, actually, my target audience, what are the other things? What are the other places where they would like to go across the internet? What's the kind of websites they'd like to go and read? What's the kind of content? What's that digital journey we think they take? You could take those URLs as well and put them in there. Now, this, again, can build right in front of your eyes, and within a couple of minutes, I decided to look at what I decided to call enterprise solutions. So I took 5 or 6 different URLs of websites, which I thought were talking about enterprise solutions, and that told me that I could reach 5.3 million people in the UK who are aged 18 to 44. That felt pretty good. When it builds this audience, it tells you, it will also signal to you the kind of keywords it's picked up on. In this one, it picked up enterprise solutions. I've got to remember this correctly because I'm not as close to this kind of business. It was enterprise resource solutions as well, so the actual framework, you had to go through it. Software, I think it was technology and business software as well. So what it will do is it will not only build this audience for you and tell you how many people you could reach, it will also indicate, of those pages it collected, what it felt were the key signals. Does that make sense to people? A few nods. Is that a bit more in keeping with maybe where you'd like to head in terms of building audiences? A few nods. So it's a way in which you can start to be a bit more precise. But then we thought, could we go a little bit deeper? And of course it's Google, so yes we can. We can go a little bit more deeper. We can look at in-market audiences. And here's where I want to dwell for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to take you through in a bit more detail about how we start to bucket people into these different audiences. So what we do is, we'll take a look at everyone that we can see, and remembering that's quite vast, and we'll think about actually the type of behaviour that they're undertaking. So in market, as the name would suggest, says actually I'm in market to make a purchase. So I'm right in that consideration phase and moving and edging towards that purchase phase. So for me, going backwards a few moments when we talked about it's so important to be part of that competitor set, this for me seems to start being a bullseye audience or bullseye way of targeting that you might want to employ to start to reach an audience. So we'll look at the kind of research they're taking. So we'll look at the websites they go to. Not just the websites, we'll look at the pages within the websites that these people will go to start categorizing them as being supremely interested in a piece of content. We'll look at the frequency. Are they visiting once? Actually, are they going multiple times? Are they going 3 or 4 times a day or a week to indicate they're actually getting more empowered about the type of purchasing decision they're looking to make? We'll update all this data in real time as well. So it means that if right now I went out and started looking at something along the lines of maybe I'm looking to buy a car, so if I go onto sites like What Car and Autocar, if I go onto sites like Top Gear, the second I'm on that, actually our data will update, and that's really important because what we have is customized lookout windows, conversion windows, if you will, for every particular in-market segment. Because we know that actually it's very different for someone looking to buy a car as it might be for someone to roll out an enterprise solution on their company. So we have customized lookout windows for every single segment. And the reason for that is it makes it much more personal. And so we will know that when someone's exhibiting the kind of behavior which says they're actually looking to buy, we've segmented them in the right way. Hopefully that makes good sense. And so again, when I looked at this, at a broad view, I found that I could reach 5 million cookies aged 18 to 44 in the UK who are looking at business services. Now you can go deeper than this, and I did. So what you can do is you can say, actually within that, that's a bit broad, so I want to go for something a bit more specific. You can go for office furniture. There's an audience for that. Lovely. You can look at software solutions and antivirus. There's an audience for that. But my personal favorite was payroll. I thought, amazing, payroll. What kind of tailored message do I want to say to people in payroll or looking to roll out payroll solutions? Reward your digital employees is what I thought. So what you can do is you can start to think about the ways in which we have categorized a lot of the people that we see within the UK and then start leveraging those audiences in your own display activity. Hopefully that makes good sense. Very well, it's a very quick overview of what we can do. So this is our intent data, and we've spent a long time building this up. So as Kevin said, we've changed a lot in the last 10 years. The processing power has changed a lot in the last 10 years, and the way in which we're categorizing people. Increasingly, clients use this. Even more increasingly, we're finding that people are now starting to say, actually, I love your intent data. How can I combine it with the data that you have, with the data that we have too? So basically, your data. Now, you might have seen this. This came out very, very recently. When we tend to launch products, we tend to launch them over quite a long cycle. This one didn't. It had a very short cycle. It's one of those things which has got people really excited, and it's one way in which you can onboard your customer data. So you've probably read that already. Essentially, what we're doing here is we're allowing yourselves to upload email lists that you might have of Google accounts into AdWords, very simply. And then you can reach them across search, across YouTube, and across Gmail. So not across the Google Display Network, but YouTube, Gmail, and search. It's really interesting. If it's right for you, then what it would mean is if you've got a really good way in which you slice and dice your email database, then you can start to have some of those really interesting conversations with your customers. So, for example, very simply, you could say that everyone over here is my premium customer, and actually these are the people who need to take care of the most. And I want to reach them consistently, make sure they're coming back, make sure they're in all my loyalty programs, make sure they know about the rollout of my latest product, or just tell them that actually there's a new update. I will have a very specific message for everyone over here. And over here, I don't know these people. So what I'll do is over here, I know these people, but they're not all my best customers. So do you know what? I'll have a slightly different message for over here. So you could do that. But you could take it much further. You could say, yes, these are my best customers over here, but every single column here represents someone getting towards my best customer. And actually, what I need to do is I need to have a different message for every single column to take them along that purchasing decision. So when David looked at IBM, lovely example with the different videos and multiple videos to take people along a purchasing decision, maybe what it might be is you have to have a slightly different message across that sales purchasing funnel to empower them to get them to the purchasing decision to take them to your best customers. There are so many different ways in which you can start to use this. It's actually more limited by the ideas that we're coming up with. In the conversations we've had in the last 7 days with customers and agencies, they've been coming up with some great ways in which they might want to leverage this. And then the final piece here is, we can also say, well, do you know what I'd like to do? If it was my best customers, over here, and these are the ones I want to get more of, I could say, well, I'll tell you what, let's employ Google's targeting technology to find similar audiences to my best customers over here. So lookalike technology. Really interesting, because what it will do is it will go out and find other people across the internet that look like this beautiful bunch of people here. Now, if we did that, the room would have to be 3 times bigger, because what you tend to find is you're 5x the amount of people that you have on your original list. So it's a great way in which to drive volume, to try and find more people who you like to convert. Now, when you're doing this, like I say, with Customer Match, you can execute, you can reach people across search and YouTube and Gmail. So it's a lovely way in which you can start to do that. But what I'll say here is it's one way. It's one way in which you can start to reach our customers. Sorry, one way in which you can start to upload your data with us. Customer Match, that's a whistle-stop tour, is a really interesting way you can do it, but a lot of clients will do it in other ways. If you've got Google Analytics, a lot of people coming to us saying, you know, I want to do something similar, but I'd rather do it through GA because I've got lots of different data I want to upload. So my team will help people onboard that kind of data. And you can have really sophisticated conversations with clients, with your customers moving forwards. Customer Match, like I say, very brand new. So what I would definitely signal here is talk to your Google rep and find out whether it's right for your business. With our intent data, so in the blue box, the affinity audiences, the customer affinity audiences, the in-market audiences, definitely talk with your Google rep to find out what's most appropriate for yourselves. There's so many ways in which you can start to reach our audience, and what we're trying to do is empower you to make a really good decision. And if you start to do, even just with our intent data, and you're not ready yet to do more with your own data with us, actually you're going to make sense of that programmatic landscape, because we'll have done a lot of the heavy lifting for you in actually surfacing these audiences. And you can access them out of AdWords. It's really simple. You could be live with these 3, honestly, within a couple of hours. I mean, I'm saying a couple of hours just because you'll probably want to think about what message you want to have, the ads you need to upload, and get someone to help you. But they're off the shelf. You do not need to do anything clever at all on your website. Obviously, in the middle here, you're thinking more technically about what you might want to do. And if you start to do all that, Then you can get into some more sophisticated areas. You can combine data sets. You can do things like dynamic remarketing, which I haven't really touched on today. But it will come back to some of those earlier points about actually being even more specific, not just reaching the audience, but actually segmenting them and reaching them with the most specific ad that you could do so. And then you can get into all our automated bidding and targeting and use the other parts of our processing power to empower you to have the best result for your display advertising. Very whistle-stop tour. We're here in the break. That is it. That's me for now. So thank you very much indeed. But do come grab us in the break. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cool. So how's everyone's morning going? Good? Learn a lot? Awesome. So we're about to go to a break, but before we do, a few other housekeeping items. So Twitter is like my new favorite thing. I'm just like constantly looking at it. Whoever asked, the slides will be shared. They will be. We'll share them with all attendees afterwards. But I want to encourage you guys to keep tweeting. So for the person who's been tweeting the most, Veronica? Where's Veronica? You also asked for the Wi-Fi. You get a mug. It's not a Chromecast, but it's really cool. Great. So you guys just heard from Fearghal and Simon. I love their enthusiasm about the ways you can reach your audience with Google, as well as some of the nuances of SMB. Every time Fearghal said, for the first time ever, I felt like I was like at an iPhone 6 launch or something. But it's a B2B event. So we're about to go to a break for 10 minutes. There's coffee, there's some pastries over there. But please try to get back to your seats promptly, because we have some amazing speakers from Sage and Akzo Nobel to share their experiences afterwards. Great. Thanks, everyone. Hello, everyone. Can you guys, if you're over here on the right, if you guys can start making your way to your seats, we're going to get started. Cool. Awesome. My first attempt at that was horrifying. I was talking to nobody. So before we introduce our next speaker, I thought we'd do another Twitter prize. Not a Chromecast again. I apologize to the winner of this. But this next person, his boss asked him to sit on the front row. So Zubair, right? So he tweeted a picture from the front row here. So for your unbridled enthusiasm for B2B, you get a B2B t-shirt. Yay! People seem more excited about these than the Chromecasts. Awesome. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. You've heard from a bunch of Googlers for the past hour and a half or so. And now we've shared some statistics, some research, some different tactics. But we thought we'd bring these to life a bit more and show how some leaders in the space, how some advertisers are really transforming their business and utilizing some of these different trends that we've been talking about. So for the first presentation, we're really excited to have Neil Morgan, who's the EVP for Global Digital Marketing at Sage. And he's going to talk a little bit about how they've transformed their organization globally and tackle some of the challenges that we discussed previously. We'll have a little bit of time afterwards for Q&A, so please start thinking about some engaging questions that we can grill Neil with. But with that, I want to turn it over to Neil.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, David and Fearghal, and thanks everyone to Google for inviting me along to speak today. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to my contemporaries. Like most of you, I'm a B2B marketer. I've been doing B2B marketing for about 25 years in the US and in the UK, for British companies, for American companies, and for global companies. And the last 6 months I've been here at Sage. How many people have heard of Sage? Okay, that's good, that's good. So we've got great awareness in the UK. And that's possibly because if you're in the private sector, there's a more than a 1 in 2 chance that you get paid via a Sage payroll product. We heard about payroll earlier, and we have half the folks in the private sector in the UK getting paid via Sage payroll, which is great. But despite being Britain's largest software company, £1.3 billion in revenue, 14,000 employees globally in 24 different countries, all is not well in the land of Sage. If you know anything about the sector or the category, you may know that Sage's revenue has been relatively flat, growing at 5 or 6% for the last few years, which is okay for a FTSE 100 company, which is what we are, but probably not that exciting in the world of Silicon Valley or some of our competitors. We've been losing market share to some new entrants. And one thing that's really missing is that we lack a digital strategy. Imagine that in the room. Who here could face getting up in the morning without a digital strategy? I'm sure everyone here has got a great digital strategy. So, so I joined earlier this year with a brief to try and fix that, to look at something. And what I'm going to share with you today is really just the first 6 months. It's just the story as it's begun. And we're very much on a journey, as you'd expect, and the very early days of where we're at, what we've looked at, and how we've thought about moving from a very country-focused organization to a very, as you heard from David and Fearghal earlier, customer-focused organization. So the approach that we've taken is not untypical. We've looked at, I'm a big believer, and I love seeing insights like you saw this morning. I'm a massive believer that great marketing is based on great insights. And no one has better insights in the world than the folks that are hosting us today. And so things like that, I'd take it immediately and inject into the campaigns that we do. So the one thing we wanted to start with as we looked at the digital strategy is, what are the key insights from the business? And I'll speak to some of those in a bit more detail. Secondly, some observations, recommendations, and a vision for digital at Sage that we've put together over that period of time with some of our partners. We've chosen 6 pillars to build that strategy on. I'll speak to those, and a customer value proposition. And that took about 4 months to pull together the team and the partners that we've done that with. And we're now in execution mode. I'm a big believer that you can only analyze for so long. You can't do this stuff forever. You've got to make some decisions and start executing, whilst then continuing to observe and get the feedback in there. So we've been executing for a couple of months on what we're doing, which is the roadmap that we're working on. This says Sage Marketing today. It's really Sage Media today. This is some of our Google data and some of our campaign data that paints a picture that I think is immediately obvious. We're in a lot of places in a lot of different ways. So this isn't because of bad marketing. This is because the nature of our company is we've expanded around the world by acquisition. So we've gone into South Africa or Canada or the US and acquired the leader in the category, typically of business management software, accounting software, and then brought it into the company, but not integrated it a huge amount. And so you can see we've got 24 different operating companies, lots of different campaigns going on, over 100 different websites. We've got 177 Twitter handles, 50 plus Facebook pages, hundreds of LinkedIn pages. I mean, you name it, we've definitely got it. So it's been a free-for-all for digital marketers to do what they please. And that could look good. That could work in a world where people don't talk to each other between different countries. But of course, as we all know, as marketers, that's definitely changed, and some of the insights we saw earlier definitely reflected on that. So this strategy really has started to not work in the last few years and has effectively flatlined. So some insights that we want to take, and a key to me is as you think about strategy, it's no good just making it up on a blank piece of paper without context. The best strategy takes the core competence of a business, applies it to the situation that you're in, and produces something that's differentiated. So we wanted to understand what makes Sage strong and what makes it great. So there are some great assets around the world. We just haven't tied them well enough together. So we wanted to consolidate, to harmonize this brand, and we think by building what we call one Sage, one company, one process, one operating company, we could really improve our performance and our effectiveness, and right into marketing. We have 3 million customers. We have new products, like a payment product. Just like when you use your iPhone, you go up and pay for something, we have a product that does that. But 1% of our customers in the UK are using that product. So we've done a very poor job of cross-selling. So really interested in that customer targeting stuff from Google, because that will enable us to target our own customers. So Customers for Life is a strategy and a thing that we think we can develop with our 3 million customers and really expand our penetration in those. We've not been focused, ironically, around new customer acquisition. We've been very focused on managing our customers, but not really acquiring new ones. We think we could be much better at winning in the market, at competing for new business. We're in the business of business applications for small businesses. When you start a business, we want you to look at Sage and think about it. We think we can revolutionize this business. I'll talk more about that in a minute. We've got 14,000 people in the company. We really think we could leverage that asset and use it much more effectively. And a capacity for growth, building a capacity for our internal growth as well as a core strategy. So these are strategic bets that we've made as a company. We've got a vision as a company to be the champion of small business, to help people build and grow a business. And from a marketing point of view, we want to be a recommended brand by businesses by becoming a go-to source for information. one of the things about small businesses is they don't always have access to information the way a large one would. They don't have budgets for market intelligence or insights. And we want to be in a place to provide that. We've got a massive amount of knowledge internally about how to get people paid, how to file that tax return, how to set up your book of accounts, how to run your business. But it's really not very widely shared, and we think that's a great thing we can tap into and leverage to help people grow their business. And if we do that, we can become this recommended brand that we aspire to. So these are the 6 pillars, and I'm just going to speak to each of them for a couple of minutes. And the first one maybe isn't a surprise, which is harmonizing our brand. So we wanted to take all of those social properties, all of those websites, all of those domains, and put it together into a single, powerful environment. But we also have been very product focused. As a company, we've got some great engineers who build great products, but we've marketed them on that basis, product by product. And as the folks at Google will tell you, we've individually sometimes competed with one another for people's attention. You may have seen that, somebody's nodding in the room. You might go out and search for online accounting and see several Google responses to that, Sage responses on Google to that. So the first thing we needed to do is look at it from the customer's point of view. And we know, we're massive believers that customers are going to discover us on paid or natural search. That's how people we know are going to discover us. But then how do we engage in that journey, and how do we apply content and a content marketing strategy to do that? And so the recognition, really, what we wanted to do is work with some of our partners, particularly We Are Social here in London, to just understand what's the value of each channel in the decision-making process, and how do we purpose the right content to the right place. You know, Facebook is a great platform for branded content, for light engagement. It's not a great platform for detailed content, for deep engagement when you're evaluating a product. Whereas you might look at a Google Hangout for having a meeting with someone, for doing a one-to-many conference and briefing them on a particular issue that they've got in mind. So figuring out that strategy is something we've spent a lot of time on. And this is an example of one of the journeys that we've been mapping. We've, like most of you, done our segments, done our personas, worked out the journeys and mapped it all back from that. So a very customer-centric start as we consolidate our brand. And then this is what the consolidation looks like on social. So we now have one global Facebook page, which has brought in those 50 plus different pages. Still allows you for local targeting, but consolidates the brand. We have a couple of 100,000 fans on Facebook. And that then gives us an understanding of what people are interacting with. Same with Twitter. We know we want to be able to target people on Twitter in different countries and different languages, and so on and so forth. The last thing that we're doing right now is, if you look at our YouTube channel, one of the key assets, and you heard about video content earlier, we absolutely recognize that's a massively important area to invest in. It's also, from our point of view, because of the way it's been done, the most complex. So if you look at our YouTube channel right now, it's a bit of a mess. And we know we need to work on it. So I welcome anyone, and there's obviously a lot of people in the room who know about this, to take a look at it and share any opinion as to how you think we can improve it. So that's something we're focused on right now. Secondly, so if we get those platforms right, we need to embrace great conversations. We've got all this content. How do we engage with people? How do we build the conversations? Any one year, about 6% of business-to-business brands look at their business platform, their accounting solution, the platform that they run their business on. So that means the rest of them, 94%, aren't going to buy anything this year. But as we heard earlier, every year we'll consider it at some point during the cycle. So we've got to make sure we engage in conversations. And what is fascinating is to see that, again, because they probably don't have, the businesses between, say 0 or 1 and 50 employees, and then 50 and 500 employees, don't have massive budgets for information. They're absolutely searching for this kind of advice. Free startup advice. How do I get started? How do I hire my first person? How do I get my tax return done? So if we can be there at the time they're looking for that, we can get great engagement. Obvious points, but something that we haven't really done from the customer in. And then secondly, there are moments of truth. There are particular events that you have when you start your own business and you think about running a small business where you're registering that business. That's an obvious event that's going to trigger interest. Where you're hiring people, when you're filing taxes, there are certain events that are going to trigger a lot of interest, and we need to make sure that we're around there as well, and looking for people at the right point, at the right time. So great insights that we get from our friends at Google and Neo that really help us to formulate our journey and our targeting strategy as well. So our customer value proposition is based, as you'd expect, around that. at being the go-to source for support and advice to grow and energize a business throughout its life. So our proposition is if you grow, if you're one person a day as a sole trader, 5 people, 100, 500 people will follow through with you. We'll help you grow that business. When you first export, we'll help you do that, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And we genuinely want to help our customers grow, and we see this all the time. I published a post last week just about some of the small businesses that we've been working with who have social-only strategies to drive their businesses that are seeing massive growth at the moment. So that's getting the content right, getting the platform right, but we also think there's something we need to do in this category, because could you imagine a more boring category of software than accounting software? You know, it's not that exciting. When I joined the company, I was like, really? I was in digital for the last 10 years. I was doing some really cool stuff with the guys at Google. Do I really need to do this? So, you know, accounting software hasn't really changed much, or the accounting process hasn't changed much since double entry bookkeeping was invented in 1494 in Venice. So what could we do to change and disrupt the category? So here's an example of something we think we should do.
The modern world moves fast, really fast. Opportunities are there and gone. Obstacles appear without warning, and the future of your business is determined by decisions you make in the moments that matter. Moments driven not just by guesses, but numbers and knowledge. Available not sometimes, but anytime. Which is why there's never been a moment like this. Powered by technology that works the way you do. Sage Live gives you a single, real-time view of your business. It's accounting in the moment, selling in the moment, deciding in the moment. Sage Live. Business in the moment.
So Sage Live is a concept that we came up with in December of last year. And we thought, what is it that people get out of our accounting application? It's something that their accountant uses once a month to run their books, see how they're doing, get paid, and they find out if they're going to stay in business for the next month or go out of business. There's a couple of things we could change here. One is we could make it a real-time platform. So anytime, any moment when you post something into your system, you know how you stand from a cash point of view, from a financial management point of view. Where do you stand? Well, if you do that, shouldn't everyone in the company get access to that? Why is it just the financial controller that gets that? So let's make it a social application and let's provide it to everyone in the business. And then finally, as we've heard, we're all on our mobile devices. Let's make it available on any mobile device. So Sage Live was conceived to do that. We've partnered with Salesforce. We're the largest partner of Salesforce globally this year. And we've built, conceived, and launched Sage Live in the space of about 8 months. So it's available. We're just doing our first release right now and just testing it with our first clients in Europe right now. So reimagining the potential of something that we think has been pretty uninteresting, which actually is really fundamental to how people run a business. And that goes through to the experience. So the product is the experience. If you think about how the applications that we all use, when we work, when we play, when we travel, whatever it is you're doing, the experience and the product have now merged pretty much into one. If you think about all the applications, you think about if you came here today on an Uber, that fantastic interface that they have that fronts a huge amount of data, of location data, of the guy who finds you, of the payment that he gets from you, everything that's masked behind a very simple interface. And so I'm very passionate that we reimagine the experience, that we lead with the experience that people have into products like Sage Live from great digital experiences. So that the central tenet of our digital strategy is to build great engaging experiences that start up on any channel, cross channels, and then take you into the product. And that's a big aspiration for a company that's been very singular product centric in the past. So we're not there today. We're definitely not there today on anything that we're doing, but that's absolutely the aspiration, and we're teaming up a team tooling up a team that's going to be able to do that. Now, one of the first deliverables we've had is our corporate site, which in the UK is sage.com, where you can see the way we're thinking about it. Reimagining business for our businesses, making it easy for people to find based on who they are, if you're a small business, medium-sized business, an accountant, what have we got for you, and making it a really engaging, rich experience that's absorbing and hopefully makes you want to come into the conversation. And then, as you may have gathered from that fragmentation, there's a big opportunity for us to work with our media partners to increase reach and unlock a lot of revenue here, pretty much for the same investment. Now, what we see, again, from our customer data from Google is that this is a very fragmented market globally. There's no one global leader in the space that we occupy. So Intuit are very prevalent in the US. We're very prevalent in the UK and Canada and South Africa, but there's lots of different players. And so this market is there for the taking on a global basis. We actually think there's a massive opportunity to take a global market leadership position. And then from a category point of view, we span a number of these categories today. We provide a lot of these capabilities today. We're only really historically been focused on one category. So we know we need to branch out and raise awareness and get people's attention for others, like payroll, payments actually, which isn't on there, in the HR category. So there's a lot that we can do. But the reason we haven't done it is because our data has been fragmented into 150 different Google accounts around the world. So the businesses were running their own products and their own business in that account. So with the help of our friends at Google over the last few months, and also Neo, who we've decided to partner with, we've managed to consolidate those 150 Google accounts into one, which is what we have today. We've also brought about 25 different media agencies that we've worked with around the world into one, which is Neo at Ogilvy. And in doing that, we've managed to save a 7-figure sum off our agency fees globally, just on media. And I've got a deal with the CFO that anything we save, we get to put back into marketing for products like Sage Live. So it's a pretty good deal. We're not a company trying to save money off the bottom line. We're trying to invest in growth and grow the top line. So a pretty good arrangement, and so far he's held true to his word. So we've got a significant increase in our budget this year just by having a global strategy. And Neo, I have to say, have been brilliant, have put a lot of effort into helping us do a very challenging consolidation. And particularly to drive out, we've got 3 kind of pivot points with them in the world, and they've also moved people around the world to lead on our account, and we've just agreed a new relationship with them, as we are with Google right now. And it's been a difficult piece of work, a large number of people, helped by some friends at a great company in London I'd recommend called Flock, who are a great media strategy consulting company up in Covent Garden. But been very rewarding, and actually we've seen it through to fruition in a pretty short space of time without a global media team. Because at the same time, we're trying to build a global media team to run all of this going forward. So it's not been not an insignificant challenge, but a fun one. And then the final thing on this strategy is using this internal expertise, the 14,000 people. And I saw a figure, and I can't remember the source, but it said something like if you've got about 250 people active on social in your company, the net advertising equivalent value is about $1 million a month. If you've got that kind of number of people who are active on your behalf around the things you care about. And we historically have not been engaged with our employees on helping them share what they do. It's not just towing the line and saying the corporate line, but if you're a support person on the phone helping someone at midnight get that tax return in, you've probably got a lot of knowledge that you could share in the social domain that would actually be useful to people. But it's been very locked in, or whatever job that you might do. So we wanted to bring folks together, and I think about 3 months ago now we had our sociable day, our first sociable day, which was just bringing together everyone in the company for a couple of hours in 100 different locations and just doing a social training, just giving people permission to post on the company's behalf, talking them through the tools, and really it's just about permission. Most people in companies are just a bit nervous about doing that. So just saying, look, this is fine, go ahead and do it, share your thoughts, try not to abuse anyone, but try not to be rude, but generally it's a good idea. And got a great engagement with doing that. And the theme that came back is, that's great, but I'm not quite sure what I should be sharing. Can you help me follow the conversation? So another tool that I'd recommend that we put in a few months ago is something called Sociable, and there's a number of different employee advocacy applications out there, but this costs next to nothing and puts a dashboard on everyone's desk where they can see the conversation that they want to follow. And that we have about, I think, 20 different channels based on your country or your segment or whatever you're interested in, you can follow the conversation and reshare stuff that you know is kind of sanctioned by the business. So that's it. That's the story so far. 6 pillars of digital strategy. We're very much embarking on this journey for the first time. If you want to follow the conversation, I'm kind of doing it as a bit of an experiment and sharing what we're doing as we go along. I started out posting, we use Salesforce and Chatter internally, and I started out sharing the strategy as we went along internally, and I think some people might have read it, but most people ignored it. And then I put a post on LinkedIn about it back in the summer, and everybody came and went, oh, right, we're doing this digital strategy then, that's good. Well, how can we help? So it's amazing what the difference when you actually do something externally versus internally. So if you want to follow the conversation, I'm on LinkedIn and post relatively regularly, every couple of weeks when I can, about what we're doing, the issues that we're seeing, the challenges that we're having, and so on. And equally, if you want to share your ideas, this is a work in progress. I'd love to hear feedback from a couple of hundred digital marketers about how you think we could do things better. So I'm sure you'd have the best ideas come from everywhere, so I'd love to get that. So that's me out of time. I think we've got a few minutes for questions. Am I correct? Yeah? So if anyone has a question, I'll try and answer it. Yeah.
When you touched on your customers for life strategies, I'm Kush from Carrot Enterprise. You touched on your customers for life strategy earlier on one of your key aspects of it. Just generally, what are you kind of looking for as key indicators? And is there anything specific you're doing to engage them on a regular basis, because their interests are obviously going to be different from everyone else's?
Yeah. So the question is, what are we doing, Customers for Life, about how are we thinking about communicating to them? What are the key indicators? You know, the critical indicator obviously is retention. So we're moving our business from a traditional software business into a subscription business, and so the annual renewal, like many of us, is incredibly important. I think we're running at about 94% renewal at the moment, so it's pretty good, but maintaining that is really, really important. So that'll be the key indicator. And then the other major metric is product density. So most of our customers have one product. And we see a golden triangle for businesses where if you've got an accounting application, you've got the payroll application, so you're paying people, then you're also taking money off your customers, your payments solution. Then that's that kind of, and those three things are integrated together. It makes the movement of money around your business really powerful. It speeds up your ability to take cash and get people paid, makes you less likely to go out of business, makes it easier to grow, but also obviously makes you much more valuable to us as well, much less likely to move. So those are some of the key things. The key strategy is a nurturing journey, is using things like the targeting that you saw from Google. Obviously we know these people, but we want to make sure our media strategy reflects that customer one as well. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, hi. I'm Kira from OMD. Quick question on the customer intent model. So you've created that to understand your customers internally, I'm guessing. Are you using that as a marketing strategy as well? And if so, how?
Yeah, so the intent model was external data, actually. So we've looked at both in terms of what people internally are doing, our NPS scores, and what people we think are going to do next, as well as externally. We haven't got a really very sophisticated way of kind of mapping those two right now. So actually it's pretty crude, which is if you've got this product, your next best journey, your next best step is going to be this kind of product. But we're trying to reverse that and look at it from the customer requirement and look at what are the top use cases in payroll, accounting, payments. What are the top use cases? What are the top, in other words, problems that you have, and how can we address and solve those and build the content that we're trying to solve. And that's the work we're doing right now for release early next year, which is I haven't talked about yet, but something we're working on. Thanks. So I think I'm out of time. Any last questions? No, in that case, I'm on time. Are those?
Hello. Sorry, my name is Christine. I'm here from Geometry. I'm interested in the employee advocacy program you mentioned. So you mentioned that you gave empower Toy employees to spread the word about Sage. Can you tell me a bit more about what direction you gave them, what guidance? Because I could imagine that could go quite wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. We did, we have a head of social, and we have created a policy to guide people on what's a good idea and what's a bad idea on social. And it was when I got here, it was like a 12-page document. I don't know about you, I don't read 12-page documents. So we did an infographic of the policy, put it up on Chatter, and just said, look, everyone look at this. Just get your head around. There's 4 or 5 main points. They're all the obvious things that you'd counsel people to do when you're talking about your company on social. So the main thing, so we did that in the training, covered that. And then the next thing is just enable people to share this stuff. And I showed you the application. What that does is it shows you content that we've published or that's being discussed in our domain that we already participated in from an official handle. So it's 99% stuff that we're comfortable with. So right now, probably 99% of the stuff people are sharing is from that channel. Now, we do hope that they then go and branch out and start sharing their own thoughts and their own research. But so far, to my knowledge, touch wood, we haven't had a major blow up where someone's gone out and said something that's is confidential information or spurious or slightly rude. Hasn't, to my knowledge, happened yet. So far it's okay. But even if it does, we're so delighted with the growth in engagement. About 8,000 of our 14,000 people have been engaged. It's so powerful that I think we'd forgive a few issues given the response that we're getting and the value of that. It also obviously makes people more engaged with what they're doing and more interested in what they're doing as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think I really am out of time now. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much, Neil. That was awesome to hear. I saw quite a lot of nodding and agreements. Sounds like Sage is going through similar challenges and opportunities as many of you guys are in your organizations. So we have lunch afterwards, and this is a big part of this event is being able to share all these ideas with one another and discussing in a collaborative environment. So that's really great to hear about. So we're now going to pivot a bit. So we had an audience-focused conversation with some Googlers as well as Neil from Sage. Now we're going to change topics a bit and talk about mobile, everyone's favorite topic, and how you can address those challenges. Frankly, in the B2B space, mobile adoption has still been slower from an advertiser and marketer perspective, given a lot of these challenges in understanding how your customers are engaging with you on mobile devices. So before I introduce my next speaker, I want to do something a little bit fun, because we like giving away things. Apparently that's my job today, is just to give away cool things. So if you guys can look under your chairs for a Post-it note. Anybody have one? If you do, there's only 2. So they're definitely under there. Oh, I hear a rip. Oh, does someone have one here? It's just a blue Post-it note. Have one here. And there's definitely one more someone's missing. No, I don't know what that is. That's from another event. You can open that envelope. I have no idea what that is. And then, no? Okay, well, there's definitely one more over here. So if you guys can look for it. But we just thought this fun. So you guys saw the Chromecast announcement perhaps a couple of weeks ago. So one of the devices is a Chromecast audio, which is the idea of a Chromecast, but for your speakers. So whoever finds that other Post-it note, keep looking. You over here get one. You found it, right? Oh, yep, there you go. And then you guys just keep on digging under your seats until you get something, and we'll bring it over. Okay, so with that, I don't know what the segue was, but now that you guys are up and active, we're going to change, talk about mobile. And what we thought we'd do is we start the conversation with an example of a company who has been very innovative in the mobile space. So we're going to bring on our guest speaker from Akzo Nobel, who's going to talk about what they've done with their app strategies, especially when we talk about apps, right? Mobile websites is definitely an area of growth, but apps, how's your company using mobile apps? And this is a really great example of how this company has really transformed their business through mobile apps. So that, I'll turn it over to James.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is James Green, and I work for the Akzo Nobel UK business here in the UK. And you may well be wondering, who are Akzo Nobel? Am I right? In 2008, ICI Paints was acquired by its biggest competitor at the time, Akzo, for £8 billion, making Akzo today the world's biggest paints and coatings company. We supply a wide variety of products which are used to build, decorate, renovate, and improve the interior and exteriors of buildings. In the UK specifically, we have consumer-facing brands such as the Dulux brand and 6 B2B or professional or trade brands. We use the terms interchangeably. But our professional brands business in the UK represents over 50% of the UK business turnover, which is just over £250 million. We're a traditional manufacturing business, and our whole business and structure and core expertise is structured around making paint and understanding colour. And so we still use things like paper. And that creates challenges when we're trying to harness the opportunities that the fast pace of digital change is bringing. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit today. But first of all, a bit random, if you want to stay on trend, colour of the year for 2016 is Cherish Gold. It may come in useful. But that's enough about colour. I'm going to share our mobile story today with you. And I'm going to do that by telling you our story of the ugly duckling. Because in our business, mobile apps were a really, really ugly duckling. The tale begins back in 2010. So the iPad 1 has just launched, Instagram has just started, and we, as a business, could see an opportunity emerging with mobile apps as part of our mix, particularly for decorators who are out all day on a job, running their businesses from their company, from their mobile phones. But the problem was our business was really, really, really wary about mobile apps. There was some reason, an internal perception, that apps were risky, were expensive, and were a fad. And so they were sort of overlooked and neglected for a while. And we preferred to use our existing channels, which are shown here as the healthy, happy ducklings. Our business had a case of anatodophobia, which I had no idea existed before putting these slides together. But it turns out that it's the persuasive, irrational fear of ducks. I hope no one has it. But linking it back to our business, it means we had a fear of apps. At the same time, our data was telling us that our customers were becoming more and more mobile. We could see it. But the internal perception was that decorators, who are a traditional, skilled tradesman, usually 40 plus and above, would not want or use a mobile app. And we were also in the middle of transitioning from ICI Paints to Akzo Nobel, so we had an identity crisis going on. ICI had served as a really useful, strong brand in the UK, tying all of our brands together. But Akzo Nobel had absolutely no credibility and very low awareness. So we had a challenge because the business didn't want to use any of the existing brands, and particularly Dulux Trade, because there was a worry that apps would somehow damage our brands. So our saviour, in a funny way, and naming solution was that at the time we had a really, really strong offline magazine for decorators called Trade Express, which was published regularly and sent out to customers containing content from all of our trade brands. And so we got to a position where the business gave approval for us to trial an iOS app under the branding of Trade Express. So with a really limited budget and using a techie in-house developer who just had a sort of part-time hobby for app development, but had a really good knowledge of our business and of our brands, Adam created a really robust, technically robust app. But unfortunately, it wasn't very beautifully designed, despite multiple attempts to try and get the design improved. But in the scheme of things, we were just really pleased to have an app. The challenge was that we had to work really, really hard to promote it, because no one was actively searching for Trade Express in the App Store. So all of our own channels, we put a lot of effort into promoting Trade Express so that decorators would go to the App Store, actively search for it, and download the app. And over 2 years, we had a steady stream of downloads, despite the total lack of credibility in the Trade Express brand. And at this point, what we had seen as an ugly duckling within the business was turning into a young cygnet. Our business was no longer wary or scared of apps, and we were given investment to invest in this area. Not a lot, but enough, and it was a step change in how the business was thinking. So, chapter 2. It's now 2012, the London Olympics are underway, and we've got business support for the next generation of our project, and a limited budget that we really need to stretch as far as possible. We've got 3 main customer types with very different needs. So we've got decorators who are in direct contact with the product on a daily basis. And then we've got interior designers and people like architects and property managers who never actually come into direct contact with the product ever, but they're really influential because they're putting the product and brand on the specification for the decorator to then buy and apply. And we also have a strong portfolio of 6 trade brands, which we need to work really hard to actively cross-sell, particularly Armstead Trade, which is the 3rd biggest UK trade paint brand, and Sickens, which is a premium wood coating. So our challenge is, how can we cost efficiently meet the mobile needs of our fragmented audience and our mobile brands? Chapter 3. We clearly understood our challenge, and at the same time we're working on our digital strategy, because we are in a situation where every one of our brands and services had created their own websites. So we now had 17 different websites, all serving the same customers, which was making it really confusing for our customers and was making it really difficult for us to manage internally. And it was at this point that we realized that we could win if we could actually provide digital solutions and digital services which made our customers' paint lives easier. Because as a decorator, you are totally sort of embroiled in paint all day. Because if we could do that, our decorators could spend more time out on jobs actively earning and running their businesses, and hopefully use our products more over time. However, we weren't totally clear on what pain points our digital solutions could solve. But luckily as a business, we're never short of research. And actually already within the business, there was 2,000 slides of research that we were able to work with our digital agency to work through, consolidate together and create really detailed personas and really detailed customer experience maps, which allowed us to then be really clear on what modules we needed to create in our apps. At the same time, we also developed 3 mobile principles. The first was simplicity. So really sensitive to the fact that our customers are really down-to-earth, skilled tradesmen who don't really want to be baffled. All they want is a simple experience. We knew that anything we did on mobile had to be really simple. Modular. We knew that a one-app-fits-all approach wouldn't work for us because of the different needs of our various audiences. But we did know that some of our modules could be shared across our different customer groups. So it was decided at that point that each of the modules of the app would be built totally modular, because we were also transitioning at this point from a local to global approach, and we wanted to be able to share any of our modules created locally back up to global. And finally, device functionality. The purpose of our mobile app was not to replicate the functionality of our already fully responsive website, but to create an enhanced experience. So whether that would be using the camera for augmented reality, or using GPS for store finder, or actually something as simple as allowing decorators to find the products and colour information that they wanted to when they were on a job without connectivity, which is often the case. So chapter 4, it's now 2013, and we took an internally controversial decision at the time to become totally mobile customer-centric. It seems really obvious, but we've been really brand-centric in the past. And we went through this. As we'd been going down through a very brand-focused route with our websites, we were in the position where we were about to replicate exactly the same thing with our mobile apps. So we'd end up with 6 mobile apps, all for the same customer groups, creating confusion again from a customer point of view and creating complexity for us to manage. So we're now in a position where we have a really customer-centric structure, so that it's really easy for a customer to get exactly what they want from Akzo Nobel, whether it's from any of our brands or services. So whether you're a specifier, a professional decorator, or an interior designer, you just need one app from Akzo Nobel. We have one universal app platform which powers all of this, and where key shared modules such as the colour laydown are pulled from. And then the apps are updated on a regular basis as new functionality and modules become available. So with our approach clearly defined, the Decorator Interior Designer app were launched on the Android and iOS stores, and promotion continued again mostly through our own channels on limited budgets. Chapter 5, leveraging global scale. It's 2014, and we have transitioned to a universal global app platform. So the global centre is now being really useful from a local point of view. And we're at a point where we can begin to leverage our global scale. So a 2-year project has been going on to create a live augmented colour visualizer. And it's now at a point where the business is happy for this to be launched. And this video shows you that.
Choosing colours with your customer has just become much quicker and simpler. That means you can get on with the decorating more quickly without costly delays. Download the free Dulux Trade Paint Expert app to your Apple or Android device, and the exclusive augmented reality visualizer technology makes it all happen instantly. Simply click on Launch the Visualizer, and you can get your customer fully involved in choosing colours from the entire Dulux Trade colour palette. You can see the room in any Dulux Trade colour on the walls with just a tap of the screen. Experiment with bolder colours and select the final colour with confidence. No waiting, no guesswork. It all happens instantly. There's more. The unique innovative technology can match colours and offer complementary colour schemes for that colour, removing all of the guesswork and adding value to your service. And the best thing is, they can already see the room redecorated before a single drop of paint has been applied. By taking screen grabs, customers can even view and compare them together, allowing them to reach a considered and confident color choice. Then it's over to you to check over the technical product advice. The app puts it all at your fingertips, so everything can be agreed quickly, so you can manage your paint job more efficiently. You can also easily find the nearest Dulux Trade stockist wherever you are. Download the new free and totally unique Dulux Trade Paint Expert app today. It'll free up your time.
So one of our key objectives is, as a business, is to lock down the colour choice as quickly as possible, as that reduces switching or brand switching. And so the next video we're going to play shows how the app mutually helps us do that, as well as help the customer run his business on a daily basis. This is Robbie Dodds, one of the Decorators of the Year, talking about how he uses the app.
I think the app's helped my business. It looks professional. It gives customers a lot better idea of colour. You're not carrying a load of tatty colour cards that have been stuck in the van. You can actually go through all the colours with the customer there and then when you come and have a look at the job. Show them the app, show all the different colours, and they can decide straight away. It means it's quicker for me and I can get to work quicker on the job. I can basically go in and, you know, somebody says they wanted a dark yellow or something like that they liked, or a cushion that they liked. I could either scan it, put it on the wall and show what it looks like, or can either just go into the app, pick a colour, show the customer the colour. They can pick a colour that they like. I can put that on the wall. I can mask and tape it, so I can have a certain wall, a certain colour, or I can pick out a feature wall in another colour. With this app, you've got all the colours there that you can need, and also it's live, so you can pan it around the room, and it shows the customer live footage of a colour on the wall.
So we're now at a point where we think we have a really useful set of customer-centric apps available, whilst being really sensitive to the fact that we know that we've still got a lot to do in this space. And as every Signet knows, when growing up, you need to be aware of predators. And I think similarly for us, over the 5 years, or over the journey, there's been a lot of obstacles out to get us. And so I'm going to talk through some of our learnings. Despite decorators on the whole being generally older and digital laggards, we found that the huge general rise of smartphone adoption was forcing decorators to start using technology. And hence, when we created the apps, they were beginning to use them. But what we found was that many decorators had what we termed technophobia. So actually, there was a hurdle or a perception that the technology or the app was difficult to use, which we began to overcome on a series of already established roadshows which are going around the country talking about products mainly. But we added this in as a module. And we found that it really, really helped. So the trainers in some situations were actually having to sit with decorators and say, this is an iPad, this is a mobile phone, this is an app, and this is how you download it and open it, etc. And then by being as basic as that, the decorator then sort of felt more confident to be able to explore the app and use it. What we also learned on that was that there's a fear that you can break the app by experimenting and exploring it. And by having someone literally there saying, it's okay, you can explore it, it just gets over that hurdle, and then they're fine and find it intuitive and can start using the app as it's meant to be used. This short video brings the tour to life.
Good morning everybody, welcome to the Dulux Trade Ultimate Skills Tour. My name's Chris Wingrove and I'm here to talk to you about 3 things that hopefully will make a big difference to you, your business and your customers. We're going to talk about the new Dulux Trade Paint Expert app, and that's going to be great for visualising colours before you even pick up a paintbrush.
My favourite piece of feedback, which actually came back from the roadshow, but we also got other interesting feedback through the app stores. Was this from a decorator who said, I found using the Dulux Trade app so informative and enjoyable that I went out and purchased an iPad so that I can continue to use the app. My daughter is teaching me how to use the iPad. So we got some really, really nice feedback. But we also got some really, really bad feedback, all of which were linked to the fact that when the augmented module went live, if the customer's device couldn't support it, there was problems. So we were aware that there was an expectation of perfection, which we picked up in research through the augmented module. But we weren't quite prepared for how negatively it would affect some customers. So even though for some customers the app is providing a totally live, totally unique augmented colour experience, colouring around flowers in vases and colouring around peacock feathers and vases and pictures on the wall, if you weren't getting that experience, you were having a terrible experience. On the left-hand side in green are the reviews that were left before the augmented module went live. On the right, the reviews after it went live. My favourite comment is this one, which is about latest update not compatible, can send men to the moon and 69 can't get the app right. It's not actually right. It's because some devices, even mainstream devices such as HTC, didn't or do not have stabilizers in them, which means they can't actually support the augmented tech. Where we had failed is that we hadn't made the device understand that and then create a different experience for that customer, so use a more static version. So augmented tech is not always perfect and it doesn't always produce the straight lines, but there was this mismatch of perception that the Dulux Trade brand should be totally straight. We also found that the idea of augmented researched really well in decorator groups, but when we actually look at the usage of the app, it's not used that much at all. And we think what's actually happening is that we're pushing the comfort zone of decorators too much. And one of our biggest learnings from this is that we should never underestimate the power and strength of our cool modules. This line here is the mundane colour laydown of colour, which is actually proving to be really, really useful from a customer point of view. The core product module is also really well used. Like swimming upstream, we've also found that it's really important to keep data constantly up to date, but it's really, really difficult, and we still haven't been able to do this properly, so always have our data synced for product information, colour information, video reviews, etc. And our final learning, which seems really petty, but actually has quite a big impact in the cluttered environment of the App Store, is that there's a 30-character app name limit. And when you have a naming identity problem like we do, that's not enough. So we have a situation where we're getting confusion between the trade brand and the consumer brand, because we also have separate consumer apps. However, despite all the challenges, we've had over 63,000 downloads across our free apps. And these have really become a really powerful channel for us. And I think we underestimated as a business just how much value we could get from this. Our journey is continuing. We've just added basket functionality to the interior designer app so that customers can order color chips, and that will then be extended across to the other apps. I'm out of time now, but I think and hope that you can see that we're never complacent and we're constantly learning. We're always listening to our customer feedback and watching the analytics and working to improve the app. And I hope you'll agree that our ugly duckling is turning into a young swan.
So were there any questions for James before we leave stage? No? So we're running a little short on time, so we'll definitely have, oh, wait, no, there is a question. Oh, and there's one up here too. So you'll have to bring you back on stage quickly.
Hi, Kelly Dunn from PayPal. I just had a question around your apps, and I saw the downloads, but any insight into app usage and anything you're doing to encourage usage?
Yeah, absolutely. We can see we see multiple app usage. So what we're seeing, there's analytics throughout the apps. We can see every module and how many times it's being used. So absolutely, we're getting repeat usage, particularly from decorators. So they're actually using it as a resource on site constantly. It's higher because it's so niche and because it's so useful from their point of view. We're seeing daily usage of the app, particularly on products and colour, not the other modules such as Visualize.
Any others? No? Cool. Well, based on Twitter, it sounds like we have a lot of aspiring decorators in the room who have since downloaded the app, so that's great. Your houses win. So we're going to, before I get started, did anyone find the Post-it note over there? No? A total fail? Okay, well, I guess the Chromecast will go unused until that Post-it note is found. Now we're going to invite on stage Catherine Forrest, who is our mobile sales lead here at Google. And she's going to talk through some strategies that you guys can implement both on your mobile website as well as really building that mobile audience. So with that, I'm going to introduce Catherine to stage.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm aware that I am the block between you and the next break. So I have 20 important minutes with you, and I'll keep them short and sharp. There's 3 key things that I want to discuss with you. Behavior, what is happening on mobile? What are people doing on mobile, and how is that affecting your business? Speed, are you looking at how I can get to what I need to get to and what I want to get done quickly as best as possible? And then how are you measuring all of this? Because all of this builds your mobile picture. So when I look at behavior, we know that there's been a seismic shift of digital consumption, almost doubling since 2010. Now, these 4 minutes and 39 seconds, how many of those do people in this room think are actually now done on mobile devices? And there is a reward. So does anybody want to make a guess? 80%? Anybody else? Okay, it's funny you all went for percentages and not the minutes. So we had a 50% here in the front row, which is pretty close. So yeah, so almost half of that digital time is actually spent on mobile devices. And what we're seeing in the UK is that there's about an hour and 52 minutes spent on mobile devices in a given day. Now, that seems really high to me, and what you can do is you can download a handy app called Checky. And there's a lot of parents out there who've downloaded this app on teenage phones. And it tells you how many times you're checking the phone throughout the day. Now, I'm claiming this is my colleague who did this and has been checking the phone 42 times a day. And this is the kind of average we're seeing. So if you think about that hour and 52 minutes, broken down, that's kind of 2 and 3 minute snippets. People aren't laboring over a phone for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So always have that in the back of your head. And what people are consuming is vast. It's not just social media. It's not just retail. It's all the way through to procurement. And more we're seeing now how that growth has affected the B2B industry. With 57% mobile growth on queries across all of these sectors, I guess, in a year. That's huge. So what you really need to answer and what you really need to understand is, do you know what percentage of traffic you're driving through your mobile devices? Hands up who would know that number. Okay, you need to know this number. This is an important number. So one of the things you see is that desktop conversion rate is still the driving force, and mobile still is showing that it's kind of slower or behind or something isn't adding up. And in my opinion, there's 2 factors that are driving this, that would be driving this. There is site speed and the functionality of what you're doing on your mobile site. That can be UX, that can be speed, that can be rendering images, a whole plethora of things. And then it's also down to, what are you actually tasking mobile with doing for your business, and how are you measuring that? So those 2 things combined are what's going to affect the success of your mobile strategy. And getting them right is imperative. So when we look at speed, Google has invested an awful lot of time and effort in providing external tools, which I'll show you in a little bit, that you can go in and check your mobile site with. You can see how fast or how slow your pages are loading, and you can understand how you can improve that. So user experience is about the UX. It's the perception of how easy is it to get through the various steps to get to information that's important for me to engage with your business. Speed is about standing there and having buffer face, as it's called now, and waiting for pages to load, waiting for information to be available. And these two components obviously are going to affect conversion. And one of the things I would also flag here is the definition of what conversion is needs to be thought about as well. So don't go into the detail of looking at this. This will be circulated. But what I'm here to say is if you're spending a lot of your hard-earned money driving really good quality traffic to your site, are you confident that you are dropping them in at the pages that are relevant? Are they getting to that point that's giving them the information in the quickest way? Because again, going back to this hour and 52 minutes, 2 and 3 snippets, you've got to be sharp, you've got to be relevant, and you've got to be easy for me to navigate through. So, make sure you're going back and you're looking at your mobile strategy and you're understanding those landing pages and you're confident and happy that they're the most relevant and the easiest to use that you can possibly provide to your customers. People hate waiting, and it's one of the biggest blockers to actually getting on with engaging with your brand on mobile. So people are constantly saying this to us. There is a sweet spot for speed. Too slow, I think the stat is if your page takes longer than 5 seconds to load, I'm gonzo. I'm not even waiting around. And that's, that's got a lot of work to do in that 5 seconds. So anything you can do to compress image size, to reduce calls, to make sure that what you're rendering is the most important piece first. Often it's about layering when different components will load on a page. But there is a sweet spot, and sometimes over-investing time and effort is not worth it. Too slow is horrible, but there is a sweet spot, and you need to understand where that sweet spot is. And from Microsoft, Harry Shum has said that 0.25 seconds of a difference in page load time, faster or slower, is the magic number dictating competitive advantages for online businesses. So this is even more important on mobile. So this will be shared. All of these are links to various tools that we can help support you guys with in looking at page speed and whatnot. So this will be circulated to you afterwards, but we are doing a lot to try and support this initiative. So why is mobile not converting like you'd like it to? Because speed is low, because the flow of the information and me getting to what I need to is a bit out of shape, and also because maybe we're not measuring what we need to be measuring in the right way. Maybe we're not looking at the right things in the right way. Quite often, businesses have always spat out data and it's always been looked at in the same way, but the behavior isn't matching that data. So mobile is driving conversions to desktop. We know this. This is an anecdote. We're all well aware that we can research something on our mobile, wait till we go home, whip out the credit card, convert on desktop. That is a behavior we know is prevalent. So what you've got to keep in mind is that fact when you're looking at your data and when you're reporting to your business of what performance is happening. Too often I hear about how heavily mobile is CPA targeted or targeted on just one metric, when really it's there to kind of its purpose is to service so many other different micro conversions is the way I would phrase it. So these simple graphs, desktop performance seems to be improving. There's a lot of people who are seeing that conversion rates on desktop is increasing, but actually the number of sessions is decreasing, which makes you think, oh great, we're getting really efficient. Maybe you are, maybe you've made changes, and maybe that's true too. But what you will see is that the number of page views that is happening on desktops is generally decreasing. And you guys all should be seeing this through your analytics package, whatever that may be. People are spending less time on a desktop site, and ideally, depending on what you're surfacing, you want to keep an eye on this. If you've got a lot of great video content, you want duration to be improved across desktop and mobile. But overall, if it's more along a conversion path, we're seeing session duration drop. So if page views are dropping, session duration is dropping, God, we must be doing an amazing job on our desktop site. And on top of all of that, everybody's giving themselves a high five and saying everyone who's coming to my desktop site as a new user, they're converting. That means we're absolutely epic. Not so. It's because everybody who comes has already done their research on mobile. They already know where they're going to. They're landing on pages. They're finding products. They're getting through the conversion path way quicker because they've already done that research. But the cookie that's sitting over on mobile and the cookie that's sitting on desktop is not matched up. Right? So this is where we know the behavior is happening, but the data you sit and read every day isn't telling you that story. So you've got to sit back, you've got to rethink the story, and you've got to understand, right, we're cramming a metric into a behavior that isn't adding up. So real traffic growth is coming from mobile devices. Desktop conversion rate is increasing, but that's because everybody's informed, they're ready, they're happy when they get to the desktop site. When you start looking at this behavior of looking at stuff on mobile, watching a video, doing some live chat on a mobile, all of these are wonderful engagements on a mobile device. And when we start seeing that they convert then later on a desktop, as a desktop conversion, you start to understand this as a cross-device behavior. Google is doing everything it can, and it's growing all the time, its vision of what that cross-device behavior is. Because what we have is we have an awful lot of signed-in data across all of our products. So from Chrome, from Maps, from Gmail, we can start to understand that behavior in a really, really meaningful way. And we have automatic bidding rules that can also support your business to say, yes, I want to understand what conversions are happening in-device. I want to know what's happening cross-device because people are coming from mobile to desktop. And I want to start automating and bidding towards that optimization and investing in the right metrics. So for cross-device to be really meaningful, there's a few different things that you need to make sure you have correct. And this is for the technical aspect of cross-device behavior. So be present on mobile, make sure that your coding is correct, use the correct tracking conversions, conversion tracking even, do not conditionally fire the tag, and set appropriate windows of conversion. Now, the thing that's really interesting about cross-device is cross-device behavior is only going to be apparent if you give me something to look at on my mobile device, if you give me something to engage with, if you show me things that are interesting and I'm going to spend time with them. If I come to the mobile site, and this goes back to the landing page, and all I can do is click a 30-day trial, I have no metric of engagement. I'm not looking at a PDF that tells me the T's and C's of a download. You're not giving me any anecdotes from previous customers who've had loads of satisfaction. I'm not looking at a video that takes that boring, long form that I have to read and kind of tells me it in an easy way. Why can't I live chat with someone and ask a few questions about, okay, after the 30 days, what happens next? I have none of that depth of engagement. You're going to have very low cross-device metrics showing in your account. Okay, so mobile can do a really good role at informing, educating, and giving you brand credence, but only if you have content available that allows me to engage with you. So going back to the idea of what's going to be important on mobile and what's going to help me understand the measurement is knowing how to divide actions on your mobile site by macro and micro conversions. Like I said, micro conversions can be watching a video, can be a live chat engagement. Macro conversions can be a lead form fill, can be an actual physical conversion. But starting to divide up what metrics you're going to task your mobile channel with will inform you of what that cross-device behavior will be. And then you can go back to the business and start proving that these earlier upper funnel conversations you're having with people are going to result in a conversion and are helping for that full engagement. Xerox is a brand that has really done this very well, because when I go in and I have a look on mobile, I'm being given slide decks, videos, live chat. I have loads of ways of engaging with this brand to help me get on with what I need to get on with, because I'm on a mobile. I don't want to read a PDF. I want a video. I want a slideshow. I want something that's consumable on my mobile device. and then I'll quite often go off to my desktop and convert. HP is another brand that's done this really well with a lot of video content that's easy to consume on a mobile. And I would encourage you more and more to start looking at how you're surfacing information to people and how you're helping them have that depth of engagement with you so that they follow through to the end conversion. So we're nearly there. If I can leave you with 3 things before we finish up: understand how much of your traffic is mobile and know how your site is being used. If you are spending money on driving traffic to your mobile site and you're not happy with those landing pages, your consumer is not going to be happy with those landing pages. Surface what's relevant, make it quick, and give me the information in a speedy way. Perfect your landing pages down to what I'm looking for. Know that speed is imperative, and we'll circulate those tools to help you look at your speed. And the flow is really, really important. This is looking at a UX. This is getting a fresh pair of eyes on it and making sure it's logical. Measure the right things and assign the correct metrics for them. Keep a clear picture of the cross-device behaviors and how they all contribute to the end conversion. So when you develop a video, it's not just for general marketing. It can help you show that flow of engagement and inform your customers in the right way. So mobile is a really important channel, and it's growing in importance for your business. And we can do everything we can to support you with these conversations. You just need to chat to us. So that's it. We're almost at break time. If anybody has any questions.
Guy Hancock's from Regis. I'm starving, so I'm going to keep it really short. Do you know when Google Analytics is going to be able to give us a cross-device metric so that we can see from logged-in Chrome and Android users how many people are going from the mobile site to the desktop site?
So you can do this with a certain setup for universal analytics with the user ID engagement.
We have that.
Say that again?
We have that, so
yeah.
all ears.
Yeah, so it is doable with that setup as you currently have. So it's literally going into the detail of kind of in-account setup, but that can all be connected up and you can have a vision of that within your analytics account. It'll show you the funnel through to, you should see like almost a customer journey flow of what the touch points are and how it's doing it. So all you need to do is reach out to your Google rep and that's something we can kind of follow up on in detail. Yeah? Yeah.
So if speed is imperative, is it possible to measure the page download time through Google?
Yes. So there was a sheet there that had a whole pile of green links on it, and on it is speed testing website, where you can go in and you input your URL, and it will tell you how heavy or how light your page is and how quickly it is loading. And it can tell you by various devices as well. It's a really, really helpful tool. And I think it's really important that everybody has a look at that. And through your analytics, you'll start to understand that sweet spot. Where are people dropping off? You know, why are people dropping off? Is it the page that's really heavy and not loading quickly, or is the content boring? You know, you've really got to start digging into that detail. The average is that if anything is taken over 5 seconds, people are generally less willing to stick around. B2B may be a little bit different. There might be a bit more persistence there, but that's the general kind of stat. Nobody else? Everybody's starving?
Cool. Thank you very much, Catherine. So, believe it or not, we are right on time. This is like a first at a Google event that we're actually on time. We do have lunch for you guys, catered by Hummus Brothers, so hopefully you guys like some hummus. We will be around 45 minutes, so once you start seeing some Googlers coming around to usher you back in, please make your way to your seats. We have a really exciting afternoon. 2 amazing presenters, one from Vice, as well as our guests from RS Components, who are going to really talk about bringing your brand alive digitally and really creative ways to use video. So if you think about the afternoon, it's all about inspiration. It's all about getting you really excited about how to take on this massive challenge. But before we go to lunch, I just want to make sure everyone was listening. Can someone tell me the exact number of hours and minutes that an average UK person, someone beat me to the question. Someone really wants a mug. So I'll finish the question. Average number of hours and minutes a UK user is on a mobile device. So she was right from the beginning, 152. So you get a mug, I'll bring it to you afterwards. Okay, so we have food right over here and drinks. Please help yourself and try to be back here shortly after 1. Please take this time to network and meet your colleagues. Thanks.